All right, hello, welcome everyone watching this video. We're playing Trophy Dark, I should say, running the Gift of the Sea incursion. We're running this through the Gauntlet, which is a great place to play online games if you're interested in indie games, story games. They have some great podcasts, and Codex magazine is awesome. So definitely check that out at gauntlet-rpg.com. Want to have everyone go ahead and introduce themselves. You can just say your name and pronouns you use, and then we'll have you describe your character. So you want to start with Orlin.
Okay, so Oren is okay. My name as the player first is Robbie. I go by the pronouns he, him. I've been with the Gauntlet for a little. I guess it's about a little over a year now that I've been playing with the Gauntlet. I am playing Oren, who is a diver. And I don't know, to describe him, maybe it'd be helpful to just hear a little bit about the setting first, and then
Sure. Got ahead of you. Sorry. I'll describe the setting for a second, and then see what you think of from there. And Trophy Dark, I should start there too. It's a fantasy horror game. It's a game of dark fantasy, psychological horror. The fun of the game is watching your characters who are kind of doomed enter this place that doesn't want them there. That place in this setting is the ocean, basically. And as they go into a place to try to take the treasure or whatever it might be, that place is going to push back and corrupt them and turn them against each other. So it's kind of the opposite of your heroic fantasy, where the character's a little more doomed, or if they survive, they're going to be very changed from the start. So this setting I wrote, it's called Gift of the Sea, and it's a very ocean-themed setting where the characters, as we'll see, are in a small fishing village that practices ancient rites of basically this ceremony where they make offerings to the ocean and make prayers for a bountiful harvest, protection from the ocean, that kind of thing. And you all are playing characters that have heard about the treasure that's offered every year that's been going back for maybe centuries. And a certain place off the coast, these offerings and treasures have been made. So we'll probably get into why you're going there. But that sets it up a little better. We'll kind of explain the rules as we go. It's very fun. Play to lose sort of game, but you're still trying to win. So we'll see what happens to your characters and enjoy the process. Speaking of that, we've put lines and veils off screen. So we've established a couple of things that aren't going to be in the fiction. Won't cross those lines. There's things that are veiled. So if they come up, they'll be off screen, but we're not going to focus on them. And then we're using X card as well. So if there's anything that's uncomfortable, any of us can hit X card in the dice roller app or make an X just to indicate we're going to stop there and skip over that material. We also have an open door policy. So if at any point anyone just needs to get up and take a break for any reason, not a big deal. Just do what you need to do, and we'll continue from there.
Okay. So in describing my character, I see myself as a slim and rather slight person. Physically don't look particularly imposing, but I'm a great free diver, and am I think the village people who don't know me sometimes underestimate me, because even though I don't look physically imposing, I'm actually a pretty athletic type of person, and certainly in the water, I'm a pretty formidable swimmer and diver. But as I say, I'm physically slight. I imagine myself with kind of black hair, cut short, and somebody who I would imagine, because I have a background. I'm an escaped cultist And my drive is to cast away a cursed family heirloom for good. And I kind of picked those two because I saw that there would be a way of connecting them. That my family, we have a village that pays respects to spirit of the sea, but my family is perhaps part of a fringe that also has worshipped a more perhaps malevolent, or at least some people would think more malevolent type sea spirit out there that they have been in communication with. Although I'm trying to put that behind me now. That my escaped cultist status also means that I'm a kind of rebel from my family, and there's a kind of family relic associated with this cult religion that I have, and I'm kind of intent on getting rid of that for good, and in so doing, kind of breaking from this family background and kind of spirit that they have devoted themselves to.
Very cool. Do you think we'll get into that more, but definitely come to an interesting place to do that. So just keep in mind, we'll come to it, but maybe if you came to this place for a reason, you knew that was a place that you could do those things, or if you weren't really sure, it'll be interesting. Awesome. Keith?
My name is Keith. I use the he, him pronouns, and in this game, I'll be playing Basso, also he, him. He is a lighthouse keeper for the village. He is an older gentleman, salt and pepper hair, a beard that he thinks is probably well kept, but by any other standards, it's not. He does something to it, but he definitely has that kind of wild, woolly, sea-blown look. He was a merchant, I think I'm going to say, that was shipwrecked off the coast of this village, and all hands went down except for him. He just survived, and he has made it his task to warn others against this spit of land that wrecked his boat and took the life of his twin. And that is his drive, is to make peace with the spirit of his drowned twin, which I'm kind of also thinking as like a war against the sea. Like it isn't so much to have these artifacts that we might get, it's that the sea will no longer have them. It's not about owning them, it's about stealing them, and whatever happens afterwards, as long as it puts my brother's spirit to rest. And he's been dabbling in things that he should not have been, so he is starting with 3 rituals, which I really like the way the synergy works with picking from these forced choice lists. It's like creating the character as I'm picking from it, which is very fun. And I like that there is a lure ritual, drawing the attention of anything to a chosen object, which feels like a lighthouse thing. He's probably been using and will certainly be misusing to his detriment to see the ruin increase as we venture into the ocean.
Nice. Just curious, do you think, is your twin identical or fraternal?
Oh, I just assumed identical. Yeah, I'm going to go identical then.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there's certainly a very freaky scene that could happen there, encountering yourself below the waves.
Awesome. Now I'm just trying to take a little better notes. I forgot to introduce myself in it too. New to running games online and not at all nervous, but I'm Gabriel. I use he, him pronouns. Pretty new to the Gauntlet. Discovered it this last summer and been learning to play and come across all kinds of cool games like Trophy. That's how I learned about it and wrote this. I'm really excited to get to run it for you guys and see how the story goes. Cool. So besides that, we're going to pretty much jump right in, and when rules come up, we'll kind of bring them up as we go. Any other questions about our character sheets or anything before we start? Good. All right. So as we kind of started with, you all are coming to an isolated fishing village. It's on the rocky coast. It's far away from the forest that Trophy usually starts in. Some of you coming here to maybe get rid of treasures or reclaim treasures, as it might be. And I want to kind of, before we even get to the village, come back to some of your stories with any stories you may have heard about horrible things in the ocean. And I have a couple options if you want to roll a dice or if you just want to tell me. But I want one story that each of your characters has heard about, whether it's a sea monster or ghosts or something like that, and one reason why you suspect there might be some truth to it. So you could roll or you could make it up, doesn't matter.
I think I want to roll then.
Okay.
Throw it out to chance.
Cool. So just roll a d6 on the dice roller app.
All right. It's a 6.
Cool. That's like it was written for you. So you've heard about a sunken watchtower that once lured ships to their ruin, but now it traps the spirits of the drowned.
Yeah, that fits pretty well.
Is there any open-ended, anything that you suspect might be true about this story, or reason, I guess?
I think I would even go so far as to say the lookout on the ship I was on that was wrecked, which I want to give it a name now. The Steadfast.
Okay.
The lookout on the Steadfast claimed he had seen a lighthouse directing our ship where to go, like as our ship was going down. And it's my belief that that is what he had seen and that he was telling the truth. Oh, you know what? It was my brother. Yeah. Let's just make the whole thing all together.
Okay.
Yeah. My brother Vero, as he was going down, was, I saw it, Basso. I saw a lighthouse. And that's part of what made me want to create this one, part of making his vision true. And like, if there's a anti-lighthouse out there, maybe I can counterweigh it with what I've done, which may have been enough for a while, but now it's time to go into the sea and steal some stuff.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Maybe I'll try to make one up.
Yeah.
I think I have, being from this family, that claim to be in contact with some type of dark spirits of the sea. I think it really wasn't the case that family members really had direct sight of those spirits. They just felt like by engaging in certain, ritual practices that were not like the practices of the other members of society, that they would get certain boons or benefits. But they did, in the legends, kind of describe these spirits. And I think that there have been some occasions when I think that I may have actually caught sight of them when I've really pushed myself and when I dove really, really deep after something. I feel like down in the depths, I would sometimes spy one of these spirits. And I guess, I maybe have heard from, family legends that this village is a place where some of these spirits have been purported to reside.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they're related to the spirits that are in this lighthouse, or are they something else totally? And what, if you've seen them, what did it look like, or did you get a glimpse?
I'm not sure about the lighthouse connection. Mm-hmm. I mean, the ocean brings up as many legends as there are fish in the ocean, it seems like. So possibly, but I'm not really entirely sure of that. In terms of what my glimpses showed me, I think that they were dim silhouettes that I would see, that they were large, so that, initially I thought, okay, maybe some type of whale or shark, but I felt like actually when I got a better glimpse of them, that there was something human looking in the shape, that it wasn't clearly didn't seem really to be any fish or whale, but had some type of appendages that made it seem vaguely human.
It's very cool, very ominous. I like that. So we start by seeing both. I should mention. Maybe it answers it in itself. You believe they're true because you've kind of had glimpses, right? Okay, yeah. So just both of these things you both have ties to. They're not just a story you heard. But as you're on this boat, coming towards the shore of this village, you're trading tales of the ocean, much like this with an old fisherman. And he's actually even older than you, Basso. Whatever features you have, he's even more hunched. He's just scraggly, weathered beard. Kind of limps. Kind of looks like he's been doing this for like could be 100 years old. For the way he moves around, just very slow, but somehow still able-bodied. Still just kind of almost does things by feel. You swear maybe he's blind, but he still looks right at you. You can't really tell. But as you trade stories, and kind of asks you why you're going towards this village, and then he kind of stops, says, "Oh, I know why you're going to the village of Adis. This is the festival. The festival is happening soon, and you're not the first to go this way during the festival because," and he kind of winks at you all, and you know that there's great treasures that just get thrown into the sea every year, and no one goes down there to dig them up. I can tell you exactly where they drop the treasure. I used to be a smuggler when I was a little more able-bodied, and then I had to retire to just a fishing life. But I know how to navigate these craggy rocks, and there's just off the coast, there's a small island where they take out the offerings. But I'm not going to tell you unless you have something valuable to give me as a trade.
If you have access to all those treasures, what do you want something valuable from us for?
Oh, he says, I don't want to personally go down there. I mean, you look at me, he's like limping. He's like one arm looks like maybe he had a stroke a long time ago. Like it's pretty weak. He's just kind of basically getting by very, very slowly but surely. He says, it's well past my time to go diving. But I try to make a living however I can, and I don't hold against folks who try to just take opportunities as they can.
Kind of look over at Orlin. Well, as you can see right now, we're in a bit of a state ourselves. But if we knew the location of the treasures and came up decked out in all the riches, certainly feel very generous towards anyone that had helped us a bit. But in the current state, promises are all we can offer you.
Yeah, and I Orlin says, yes, I mean, I think we can offer promises, but if there are treasures, valuable treasures in the ocean where you say they are, I am certainly capable of retrieving many of them without a problem. And I think at this point, like I look at, is this like a small boat that we're on?
Yeah, and I don't know anything about boats. I'm just thinking it's maybe you're getting passage from some larger ship that came in, or another village down the coast or something like that, like a small sailboat.
I think what I could do is find something on the deck. Um, perhaps um, a small length of chain, or um, some small anchor. I could toss it over the boat, wait for a number of seconds where he would know that, it's like sunk down there, and then I'm going to go diving in, um, dive off the boat to retrieve it and bring it back up.
Okay.
To give him some proof of my abilities.
Yeah. And I don't think this is super risky. The waters are calm, I think, for now. Just kind of describe what that looks like. So you throw the chain piece of,
Yeah.
it is a small, like, light anchor, I suppose.
Yeah, and I toss it. I mean, it would be definitely something that I would imagine that something that I've done before, kind of like when I'm showing off to people, like
right.
So I toss it very relaxed. I give him a smile, wait for a few seconds so that he'd know that, that thing is really plummeting down, and then I kind of just jump off and retrieve it. I probably try to hold my breath for an extra long time. So, you don't, it'd be like, no normal person would have that kind of lung capacity. But then
I think I'm playing it up on the deck while you're down there. Like, he's been down there a long time. Probably dead now, isn't he? Just you and me on the boat now.
While he's down there, actually, he looks at you, Bazo, and just kind of gives you a weird look and says, like, something haunted about you, friend. Look like you've seen some ghosts. And just kind of like looks off in the horizon, just kind of vaguely.
Let me just say, I'm tired of the sea taking what it will. If I get those treasures up from the sea bottom, me and the kid, you can have my share. I don't care if I get it. I just don't want the sea to have it.
And he turns and he again, you've been unsure most of this time if he is like partially blind or whatever. He just, one eye looks like it's kind of like scarred or something, but he looks right at you and just says, there's one thing I've learned in all my years on the ocean is that the tide always takes what is due, and it always will have its share. And so we always must make sure that we give back in turn. But I can tell you and your friend here are quite capable, and be happy to tell you. And of course, if he comes up, if he makes it, then I will be happy to tell you what I've learned. If you bring back something in exchange. And at a certain point, Orland, you're probably making your way back up. Oh, you're muted, I think.
Yeah, but when I kind of feel like, okay, I need to get some air, I would surface, but intentionally, acting very relaxed, and I would surface before I really needed to kind of gasp for air or anything like that. So it would all, as much as possible, seem very kind of smooth and effortless on my part.
Nice. Yeah. He sees you and says, oh, you've done this trick before, haven't you? Don't get too sure of yourself down there, though, because as I was telling your friend up here, the tide comes, the tide leaves. The ocean gives many gifts, but it always takes away as it's owed. And be sure to remember that when you go down retrieving things. And of course, most importantly, don't forget to bring back something for me. And once he sees you bring it up, he kind of points. You're coming into the shore. You see the village not far off now, and just further off on the coastline, there's like a jagged series of little rocks coming up. And he says those are they call them the eel's teeth, because there's many ships that have been snatched and sucked under the depths by the sharp rocks, by those who were foolish and tried to sail too close, or maybe because they've displeased the ocean for some reason. But anyhow, every year the festival of Greentide makes an offering, and they bring their offerings on boats, and the whole village travels out. It's a very beautiful procession. But if you make sure you're part of that procession on one of the boats, just keep following around to the other side, and you'll see where they tip everything overboard. If you can find a way to wait until the tide recedes again and opens up a path for you, you'll see a way to get down there into a cave. And I think that's where you'll find what you're looking for. So he ultimately sails you in to the village of Adis. And as you approach, you can see indeed that the village is gearing up for this festival. It's not very large, but every house and structure you can see has small ribbons blowing in the wind of different colors, bright golds and greens. There's sort of wreaths and flowers kind of put up on the tops of the roofs. And there's a series of what look like small beach fires, driftwood being laid out in preparation for one larger bonfire, a few other ones, and a whole bunch of just materials being carried in. You're not really sure what it's about, but you see people carrying bundles of green branches, and all kind of congregating towards the shore. Is there anything that you all wish to do?
How long is it until we would actually get to go treasure hunting? I'm wondering if we need to procure lodgings and if there's stuff we need to do, if we're mostly biding our time.
Oh, sure. And we'll kind of cut a little bit. So essentially, as I guess I would ask you this, as you do kind of disembark and approach the village and just kind of start talking to folks, they recognize you're not from here, and it's a common enough thing that I won't say tourism, but some people do come to see the spectacle because it's a unique thing. And they kind of keep referring to, the ceremony tonight. You'll see as we start to prepare the festivities, and in the morning at the crack of dawn, we all row out in our boats to celebrate the coming of Greentide as the tide leaves and comes back in. So if there's anything you want to ask people around town, you can. Otherwise, it's assumed you're sort of guests of the village. And lodgings and stuff. We don't have to role play those details, really.
I think I'd be curious to find out, like, what are they offering? Does the village all get together and like offer a few amazing things, or is it like every house has to offer whatever they can? Is it all like gold and jewels and stuff, or is it like, I have carved, a very nice flute this year, and I'm going to be throwing that in?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's this question. There's an older couple that are kind of mending some fishing nets, kind of like the fishermen who rowed you into shore. They look like they've been doing this their whole lives, just very sure with their hands and a little bit stooped, a little bit slow moving, but kindly enough. And they kind of direct you and show you where they are starting to put together some driftwood, like a driftwood frame that looks like almost like a human figure. I think Burning Man towards the shore, and they talk about how it's a important time where they all offer what they can, but each person from the village makes their individual offering. So even children will offer something, either a flower they found or something that they've made by hand, and everything from just a simple wish or a more focused prayer. Every member of the village gives something and asks for something at the same time. And the tradition goes back, generations, and some people, chieftains and princes and stuff like that would offer full treasure. those who can't afford much give what they can, basically.
Yeah, and I guess, hearing that kind of legend, I think Orlin would ask questions about, well, like who or what are you sacrificing to? I mean, I am not, native of your village, but I'm curious about what you think you are sacrificing to, and what you get in return.
Yeah, and you kind of hear a few versions of it. Some of the younger fishermen, it's more, oh, my grandfather always said that it's the queen of the tides who rules the ocean, and he describes her as this ocean goddess. But I've learned that it's sensible to respect where your fish, your bounty comes from, because you depend on it to survive. So I just give thanks to the ocean, and it's that simple for me. And others describe it in more vivid, descriptions of, the queen under the waves, and she has a crown of seashells, and her hair is made of seaweed, and every feature of the ocean is what makes up her body. And in these terms that are both beautiful and kind of scary, just like all the, she has teeth like a shark, and she's very generous, but she also takes away. And that's why sometimes ships crash on the ocean, because she needs to take what was due to her for everything that she gives. So it's very kind of pagan, kind of fertility kind of feel to it, where this village subsides on what they can get from the ocean. It's pretty much an ocean deity of many different names.
I think inwardly, Basso's kind of scoffing at some of this, like the idea that you could bargain with the ocean, and it gives you safety, but he's doesn't see any reason to vocalize those thoughts. Like, not here to try to convert these people, and go ahead, give the ocean what you want. We're taking it out.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like I don't think condescending, but sort of like, okay.
Yeah. You see one of the elders, I'm just kind of generalizing these conversations. One of them, he tells you a particularly vivid image of kind of an ocean god and everything, and seems to see the you're trying not to say anything, and says, like, I know you don't have to believe in the tales, but come to the ceremony tonight as we weave the form of the Tide Queen. And you're invited, of course, as guests of the festival, to make your own offering, offer your own wishes or prayers, and see what it means. I think you will see that it's not all tales. There's great an old power in the ocean, and you would do well to respect that. And kind of carries on. And then you see, after as the sun is starting to set and the fires are being lit on the beach, the day's catch is being taken out, and fish are being roasted over the fire, and drinks are being shared. Sorry, 1 second. Crack this open. Here, that works. And you see that the driftwood frame that they've been putting together, now they're starting to weave those green branches into this figure. Do you all go down to join, or do you kind of hang back?
I'm not sure that I'd want to be up front and participating, but definitely interested in at least watching what they're doing.
Okay, yeah.
I think Orlin would get a close view of it. I mean, I don't. He's not convinced that there is any spirit. A little skeptical of that, but if he's been invited to participate, I think he wouldn't balk at kind of going down there and behaving in a respectful manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you make your way down there, you see there's been this kind of coming and going from the spot on the shore. Villagers bringing more materials to add to the structure, or some just bringing their own offerings and then they leave. But as you kind of get closer, you see that at this point, there's a full figure that looks like a woman, and some people are attaching pieces of ribbons and long kelp to form the hair. And they're adding a little bit of layers of like reeds and dried grass to form this body, kind of like a big dress that goes straight down. Her arms are kind of held out in like a form of driftwood, and they're winding more pieces of seaweed to just kind of form the structure. And it's very beautiful, but kind of eerie at the same time. And each person individually comes forward. There's a fire burning. There's songs being sung, and it looks like they're just kind of handing a thing to some of the elders who seem to be in charge of putting the final touches on this structure. And then some sort of gift is put inside. You can see some of it's just food. Some of it is something wrapped up. Maybe it's something valuable. But everyone comes forward one by one and kind of seems to say something or lean forward to whisper something to the figure. And the overall feeling seems to be very kind of festive and welcoming, because this is a time when, even if you don't have a lot to give, everyone has a chance to give what they can and kind of make their own little prayers. And at some point, if you're watching, you're invited up as well. Do either of you want to? You can come up to join, but at some point, people notice that you're observing. Yeah.
Orland's probably up closer, so I'm watching to see what he does when he's invited.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I'm invited, I would take trying to kind of be a kind of gracious guest. If I'm invited, sure, I'll kind of go up there to weave some things into this figure. If I have maybe a few coins that I would have with me, and I could wrap those up and kind of add them to what is going into the figure as my small donation to this ritual.
Nice. Yeah, and the person who is just in front of you in the line, you see that he has this one spoon. He says, "This was my grandmother's soup spoon, and she used it to make many fine meals and provide for us. It's a humble thing, but it meant a lot, and I hope that I can offer this, and you can in turn feed our families for generations just as she did," and offers that inside. And they turn to you, and it's interesting because there's this very festive atmosphere, but when you actually walk up to it, no one's really paying much attention to you. So you get to kind of have this private moment. So you offer some coins. Is there anything that you ask for, whether everyone so far has said things out loud? It's up to you if you say anything or not.
I mean, I think I would say under my breath, you may take these coins, but I'm hopeful that you will take even more from me before this is ended. I'm thinking about this heirloom that I want removed from me. And I'm not weaving that into the figure yet, but I say something to the effect that I'm hopeful that there will be something of even more kind of grave importance that you will take from me before I leave this place.
What is that heirloom actually?
I think the heirloom is a piece of carved coral that has this kind of vaguely, I mean, it's kind of a rough statue of a vaguely human type shape, but it's also, I mean, I mean, I know that it's coral and it feels like coral, but it has a kind of blackened stain to it. Um, it seems kind of mysterious to me exactly, why it would be that kind of blackened color. And it maybe has even a slight kind of oiliness to the surface that it never has got, been removed from it.
That's cool. So as you say this and drop your coins in there, you kind of look at this figure. Basically where everyone's adding it is almost at the chest, so there's sort of an open part where they haven't woven it together, and everything is sort of falling inside of it and filling it up. As you look up, the face isn't finished, but somehow you feel like you're being regarded, and something looks back at you from within this thing, and you just have this overwhelming, strange sensation out of nowhere that something's watching you that is very, very ancient and powerful. You almost aren't sure if you should have said anything. And I actually need to have you make a ruin roll.
Okay.
So just recapping, ruin rolls in Trophy Dark, or anytime anything disturbing happens, and you roll a d6. Do you get a... Okay.
I got a 4.
Okay. So actually that is the same as your ruin, so it does not go up. So if you roll higher than your current ruin, it increases. Oh, sorry.
My ruin is 4. Yeah.
Yours is a 3. I'm sorry. Yours actually does go up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm up to a 4.
Yeah. We both started fairly high. And yeah, this was not quite what you expected. Even with your sort of escaped cultist background, this takes you by surprise. And when your ruin goes up, I get to give you a condition. So I think what happens, you have this weird feeling, this kind of tingle, and you look down at your hand, and you see at first the same. It's kind of just on your wrist, just maybe inside of your sleeve of anything you're wearing. It's kind of this same, that oily stickiness or whatever that was on the coral. You see it on your hand, and then it kind of feels like it hardens, and there are barnacles starting to grow on your skin. You try to feel it. You're not really sure what that's about, but they're very real, and they've somehow appeared there. You're not really sure why. Come back to you on that. But Bazo, you've been watching your friend Orlin go up, and from what you can see, he joins the line. People welcome him. Different people are giving little offerings to the statue and saying words, and here and there, someone will say something, and people will kind of toast, raise their drink in acknowledgement, and generally a festive atmosphere.
I think I generally try to maneuver myself away from anyone looking gregarious enough that would be pressuring me to go up. I'm definitely not going to volunteer, but like if there is someone that is, oh, you should go up, then I guess I probably would cave if I cannot successfully avoid everyone.
Yeah, at some point, if you're watching, it's sort of one of those things where enough people kind of walk by and like look at you and like, oh yeah, welcome to the festival, and kind of brush past you and keep going. And eventually, you are kind of, no one's directly pressuring you, but enough people have kind of noticed and kind of gestured to come join that at some point someone gets up and offers you, a mug of some ale and just says, welcome to the Festival of Green Tide, and kind of gestures to some people singing by the fire and just says, another guest of the festival, please welcome, friend. What's your name? And doesn't really let you hang back anymore.
Name's Basso. Thank you for the refreshment.
Of course. You don't want to miss this time of year to make your own offerings, make your own wishes as you wish to. It's just one of our customs. You're welcome to join. But if not, make sure you are awake at dawn in the morning to see the procession. It only happens once a year.
I wouldn't want to miss it.
Mhm.
It's the reason I'm here.
Mhm.
You have interesting customs in your village.
And they say, this is not quite not quite your age, a little bit younger. Another, of course, everyone here seems to be a fisherman. Kind of sturdy man, a couple scars on him. Um, Big mustache. He says, yes, this is our custom. Many other villages down the coast have their own versions of it, but ours is the oldest, and we're the ones who sort of keep the oldest way of taking the time to truly honor the ocean and make the full figure of the Tide Queen.
And what have you offered the Queen beneath the waves this year?
He says, myself, I am actually going to scroll down to my treasure table. He says, I offered an arrowhead that almost killed me. I was lucky to survive an encounter with some marauders out on the ocean, and one of their arrows pierced me but didn't go far enough, and I kept that and remembered it. And this year, as the festival comes around, I offered that, and it seemed fitting to pay my dues for the ocean for keeping me safe. So I also offered the first catch of fish from the day, so that I can keep continuing going out safely.
Well, if it's not rude to ask or forbidden to answer, what have you asked for in return for these things?
So just protection for myself and my son, who I'm training. He's almost ready to take his own boat out. So I've always been taught that it's wise to give in return and give thanks when you are kept safe, because sometimes the ocean just chooses to take what she will.
Aye, that she does.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of gaze off into the distance and take a big swig of the ale that he's offered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wish you luck of it.
Cheers. And goes back to the fire. And yeah, do you hang back for the rest of the night?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll finish the ale and then kind of take an eye on where Orland's at, and if he seems to be involved, leave him to it and head to the pallet that the village has provided for us.
Good. All right. I will ask you though, for as you're still having this conversation, you can kind of see the effigy that's being formed, and at some point you look over and you see that they've kind of finished putting the features on. They've woven more seaweed and bits of, maybe it looks like bits of sails or something as cloth to put some details on this dress. What about, it's very beautiful, but something about it makes you uneasy. Is there any particular feature that strikes you as strange or disturbing?
Something about the dress in particular?
Oh, just the whole figure.
Trying to think of there's something to, and I think I'll go with it this way. I'm sure it's just how Basso is processing it, and they wouldn't actually do this, but it seems like the dress is sort of like quilt-like with all these things put together, and it seems like some of it, quite a lot of it, might be the cloth that, at least where he's from, is for funeral shrouds. And it almost seems as if they are mummifying or entombing this god figure. And he tries to shake it off and thinks, oh, maybe I've had too much ale. Who knows what they brew it with? Or my mind's just brooding on my brother after the conversation with that guy. But it's just a thought that he can't quite get out of his mind.
I think seeing that and somehow, yeah, not getting out of your mind and thinking like, there's no way that's coincidence. There's some other intent behind that. I need you to make a ruin roll as well.
And I got the same as my ruin.
All right, so you're fine. So it doesn't increase at this time. You're still not sure what it means. Shake it off. And at that point, we will finish ring 1. Both turn in for the night. Do you all want to take a quick break? Let's take a 5-minute break, or
Yeah, like a 5-minute break
Sure.
would be great.
sounds good. All right, cool.
See info.
All right. All right. Everybody doing okay? Fun. All right, cool. Now we've kind of set the stage. Now we get to get into the next ring. So, you sleep through the night. You hear distant sea shanties. If you hear any of the words closely, they're, again, they're more stories about terrible things that happen at the ocean and warnings against foolish sailors and things like that. The moon's shining through the clouds that come and go. There's a beautiful reflection on the water. It's mostly a clear night, and the song and the fires from smoke from the fires are kind of washing over you. But soon enough, you wake as the sun's rising. You hear the bustle of the village and people preparing their different their boats to go out. We see at this point that the effigy of the Tide Queen has been sort of mounted on a larger boat, kind of lashed to the mast so it can be brought out to the ocean. Orlin, how are you feeling about those barnacles on your wrist?
I imagine that, I did not sleep particularly soundly. And, I think anytime I would kind of wake up in the night, I would certainly be kind of, feeling those barnacles, perhaps even trying to see, okay, can I break any of them off? Mm-hmm. Is it painful to me to kind of mess with them? Maybe check other parts of my body to make sure that the barnacle effect hadn't, spread.
Mm-hmm. No, so far it just seems to be that one little area kind of around, I'm going to say whatever your dominant hand was, that you would place the offering in with. And if
is
you
it
tried
noticeable to other people, or have you covered it up? Like, is it something that Basso would be seeing?
Yeah, I don't. I don't know that I would feel. Because if it's going to be down on my arm, and I don't imagine I'm wearing long sleeve clothing or anything, I imagine that I wouldn't be making a show of it, but I wouldn't be hiding it either.
Mm-hmm. So if it's visible, yeah. Bazo, how to you notice that it's confusing. You didn't see that before, but there are barnacles growing on his skin. Actually, Orlin, did you try to break any off?
I think I might have tried a little bit, as long as it wasn't excruciating.
Yeah, you find that it was fairly painful, but you could kind of bear it. But then it made you bleed a little bit, and you notice in the morning, whatever you try to scrape off, it's grown back. Maybe there's an extra one. Yeah, it seems to be stuck to you. But Bazo, yeah, how do you feel about seeing that?
How large?
I'm thinking half an inch across.
And then there's a few that are that size. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely not just I maybe didn't notice that before. That's new.
It's weird. Yeah.
I think I look down so that Orlin sees me looking down, but I don't say anything specifically. I just kind of look down meaningfully and then look up and try to catch his eyes and stay silent.
I think if he realizes you've noticed it, I mean, he would say, I don't know what this is, some type of disease. Have you ever seen anything like this?
Only on the bottom of boats. You had truck last night with the sea magic.
Yeah, I if I had known I would contract something like this, I probably would have passed on partaking of the decking out of their sea maiden, but I was thinking it would be like a good guest to participate. But yeah, there seems to be some disease or something that I have caught. When I return to my village, I'll have to consult the local doctor.
Well, maybe if you can take back the coins you gave the queen under the waves, she'll take back whatever she gave you. Doesn't seem a right fair trade, does it?
No, certainly not what the villagers expected me. She would be returning. They seem to be convinced that when they make offerings to her, that something beneficial comes of it. That obviously is not the case with me.
That's not what you asked for. Well, we'll have the chance to get your coins back soon enough. Whatever else we want to take from the cruel queen. Let's make sure we get on one of these later boats. Are we taking our own boat? Is that the plan? So we can like sneak around? We didn't bring a boat though.
No, and it's fine. Basically, again, it's sort of you get the impression everybody's going out at least to kind of escort the boat with the effigy out to sea. So it's easy enough to hop on any boat. Everyone's very welcoming. There's room. If you wanted to try to get on your own boat, I'm sure you could find a way to do that as well.
It's just more a matter of sneaking away at the end, I think. But.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you want to hang back, I think at some point, if you were to hang back, you would see there's maybe some smaller like rowboats that aren't being used because everyone's kind of going in groups, but no one seems to be really concerned about it.
I would think that would be the best way to have a little autonomy with this. What does Orlin think?
Yeah, I think, hanging. Well, you think about hanging back and getting one of those boats. Yeah, that seems cool.
Cool. Yeah, I'm not gonna worry too much about the particulars of that. I think it's easy enough to do. Everyone's going out. All the boats are beautifully decorated as well, just like the houses were. They've put ribbons on them. They've put flowers kind of on the front, just to be festive. And everyone is sailing out. The sky is a little bit overcast, so there's this gray background and these bright colored decorations. There's a couple bells people have, especially on the ships with masts, kind of on the rigging. There's little bells and ribbons, and people again are singing songs. And you hear this verse, a song that goes, "Who knows what secrets dwell beneath the ocean vast and wide? Or what became of those who tried to fight the turning tide? The night is dark, the storm is fierce, but nothing should we fear. Come round and light the candles bright, for spring is almost here." And then come back to that in a minute. But they're singing songs together that seem to be traditional, kind of sea shanty type of songs. And you can kind of see in the sort of fleet of different fishing boats, big and small, some kind of old and patched together, some maybe they've been built more recently. They're all escorting the larger ship with the Tide Queen effigy attached to the mast. And the sea's calm. You make your way. You kind of see those different craggy rocks approaching that the fisherman told you about, the eel's teeth. The song continues and the ships start to make their way around, and you can kind of see where I'm going to say this is sort of on a peninsula where the village is. So you're kind of on this little outcropping of rock, very sharp pointy rocks, and this almost like a little island that's a little bit further off, and they make their way towards that. And you can kind of see if you were to keep sailing, you could probably make your way around to the other side. They sing another verse that says, "We bind the saplings wreathed in green as folks did long before. We crown a maiden as our queen and cast her from the shore. For as the land gives gifts to those who sow and reap the grain, The sea in turn must have its due when green tide comes again. How are you all? So you have your own boat. Again, I don't know the technical stuff about boats, but you can say it's a sailboat or a rowboat or whatever. Where are you trying to sort of position yourself in this whole thing?
Doesn't seem likely that we could be like totally clandestine and like, hey, nobody saw us sneak in. So I think it's rather than looking suspicious by trying to hang back, I would say we're near the back, so we have some maneuverability, but not like, and we're 30 nautical feet behind or whatever. It's like, no, we're part of the flotilla, but not suspiciously far back.
Gotcha. You're just kind of keeping in mind if you could break off at some point. Okay. So
yeah, and I mean, I also think that we would be, especially watching the boat with the Tide Queen on it, and probably taking bearings from landmarks on the land, that island, kind of making kind of careful observation of exactly its heading, because if we're planning to retrieve the treasure, we'll want to make a particular note of where we would need to go.
Yeah, you're noticing that there's small beaches. There's sand where you could pull up boats on, and then here and there it looks like maybe there's deeper water. So there's just sharper boulders, craggy rocks where the waves are crashing into. So there's spots, if you kind of were careful, you could pull in. And you see what that fisherman was talking about, that he mentioned being a smuggler, where you almost see gaps where it looks like you could cut through if you were skilled at maneuvering the boat. You're kind of watching Basso at some point. You're just kind of watching the horizon. A little further off, you see like something pop up from the ocean, and it's just like a seal. Kind of head pops up, and you swear it's just staring at you for a second, just regarding you, and then it drops down out of the water again. And kind of shake it off. It comes back a bit later. You see it's popped up a little closer, just kind of curiously. Maybe it's looking at the procession, but you kind of get a weird, tingly sense that the seal's just watching you, and then it's gone.
Are you seeing that too?
Yeah. So do I see the figure out there?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I think if then you're both watching for a minute, and it's like a long pause, and you're like not even sure it's going to come back, and eventually you do see it, and you as well, Orlin. You just swear. Sure, it's watching all this festivity, all these boats, but for some reason you just feel like, yep, that's looking right at me. It's a little bit unnerving. The oceans, and you were reminded of that sense last night. And you feel that kind of itch where those barnacles are. The ocean's aware of your presence. Crazy as that sounds. But the procession continues on. There's bells. People are maybe playing some flutes and easy handheld instruments. And they come around, and you see there's kind of the edge of that island, and seems to be the spot because they've kind of evened out their pace. They sing the final verse of the song. O mother of the endless tides, O queen of depths unseen, accept these humble gifts we bring upon your mantle green. Fill up our nets with gleaming fish, and spare our sailors brave. For all the rest, take what you must beneath the rolling waves. And that kind of final verse, everyone joins in and cheers. And you see at this point, they've unlashed the effigy, and they start to kind of push it towards the edge of the water. And as both of you are looking at this figure, again, it's just slightly uncanny. It's like very lifelike for some reason. And you swear it looks at you as it tips into the water, and it's got a very human expression on its face. And it's almost just like very sad, just very anguished that it's being thrown into the sea. And I need both of you to make another ruin roll, please.
That's a 3 for mine.
All right.
And I rolled a
Mhm.
I rolled a 2.
Yeah, you're fine. You both are already fairly high. It's just that, again, uncanny sensation that doesn't make sense. That kind of shake it off, and then with the resounding crash, this big splash of water, the effigy hits the waves, and there's pieces of greenery and leaves fly up, and everyone
Kinda
cheers.
mutter under my breath as I see the sadness of, or seem to see the sadness on the effigy. Like, Vero wasn't happy to go under either, but he had to as well. Maybe just enough so Orin can be like, huh? What was that? Did you say anything? But not to him.
And everyone cheers, and the boats who were kind of in front have started to already peel off and start to head back to shore and kind of make this bigger circle. And as you guys kind of join in line, you're kind of following the rear of it. You're kind of positioning yourself so at some point you could keep continuing along. The water's been calm, but as you kind of look up after this, you notice like the skies are darkening almost rapidly. Like unusually, there's suddenly a storm starting to gather, and you hear people crowd to like hurry up and turn around and get back to shore. And the waves start. The water starts roiling where the effigy had fallen in. It's churning. You see not far away where the waves are smashing into the rocks, and you suddenly become very aware that there's a very real danger here that your little rowboat might be dashed against those rocks if you don't take the right action. Go ahead.
And the idea was, now we know where they dump it, and we're waiting for low tide to find the cave that the former smuggler talked about.
Right. Yeah. Or find a place to pull up. But you both start to feel the ocean you start to lose control, whatever you had of maneuvering your little vessel. It starts to just rock violently. What do you all do?
Can you get her to land before it gets worse? I can try to help with the oars, but you've got the muscles here, Orlin.
Yeah, I mean, I think Orlin will, set to on, helping to row. I think he might also, if there's a boat nearby, call out, and kind of let, since we seem to be in a much smaller boat, kind of hail anybody who might be in the distance where they would pick us up to say, hey, could you lend us a line and help bring us in?
Sure. Yeah, you call out, and strange enough, like some people look to kind of see you, but then they're distracted, they're struggling, and just it's almost like out of nowhere the ocean roils and starts to just push you all apart. Some boats smash into each other and people are crying out, and the current starts to just surge. It almost feels like there's a whirlpool starting. So just as some of those boats are realizing you're calling out to them and they're shouting at each other to start to turn and trying to help you, you're pulled even further apart in the chaos of it. And it seems like somehow you're in a smaller boat. It's pulling you away even faster because you're lighter. So you're going to try to, looks like your only chance is to really row, you were saying, to just get ahead or get out of the way of the rocks. So it's going to be a risk roll, which we haven't done yet. So we're going to start figuring out what skills you would have, and any of the skills you have. So under your occupations or your background, you basically can make the case if any of those are relevant to what you're trying to do.
And that's what I was looking at when I said, Orlin, you should row because you have fortitude that may come in handy.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Fortitude, I was thinking would certainly be the one most direct. I mean, I mean, one of the other skills that comes with me as a diver is discovery. And I don't know, I guess maybe if we start getting right close to the rocks, maybe that would come into play in terms of being able to figure out, like, okay, is there in fact a kind of safer way through? But I think at least at this point, yeah, the fortitude seems like the
that
way
makes
to go.
sense. So you get 1 dice for a skill, and then the other option that comes up here is a devil's bargain if you want to make it. So basically that means is the rest of the table can propose something that might go wrong. And that if you accept it, it'll give you an extra dice. Actually, it's whatever that thing is. If we can agree on it, it will happen regardless of the outcome of your roll, but it gives you an extra dice. The other thing you can do at any time is add an extra dark dice to your roll. But that's going to risk your ruin going up if it ends up being
Right.
So it's up to you if Keith, if you have any suggestions of what could go wrong here or a complication.
As we are trying to kind of row for the nearest solid land, I mean, I guess the first thing I think of is the place we end up is not as secure as we wanted, but I'm not sure in what way that would manifest itself. So right now you've got, wait, 1 die right now? So you don't start off with anything. If you're unskilled in it, you don't get 1 die for free. Okay, that's a little different than Cthulhu Dark. So I was making sure I got that. So right now you're at 1 die, and 4 to 5 is success with the complication, and 6 is just success.
Yep. And the other thing too, when you roll, you can always choose to add a dark dice and re-roll. If you don't like what you got, re-roll everything, and you can keep doing that unless your dark dice is the highest. So, ending up somewhere where you didn't mean to could work. You kind of, it seems like you know where the spot is you're steering towards, but there's some of those weird gaps in the rocks where maybe it just takes you through to some other, get stranded somewhere and you have to wait out the storm. That could be a complication. Up to you. Or if you have any counter proposal, it's all just adding complications to the story.
And that's up to Robbie to decide,
right? Yeah,
if he wants to take 1 or both or neither.
Just 1. Yeah, so we can kind of sort of negotiate or talk back and forth of what that is. But once he accepts it, then he gets the dice and rolls.
Right. So the complication would be what? Ending up somewhere where I'm not.
Somewhere that you didn't intend, basically. So I'm thinking, kind of based off of what Keith said, maybe it brings you back through one of those gaps in the rocks, and you kind of get sucked further into the gaps in the rocks. Yeah. But not pulled underwater. So. But you don't have to. You can also just.
Just roll my 1.
Yeah, and then you could re-roll, right, and add the dark if it's not good.
Yeah, you get to see what it is and then decide to risk further.
All right. Let me try doing it with just the 1 to see what that that gives me.
And just to make sure I'm framing it right, you were trying to basically outrow the current to get towards the island. Cool.
Correct. Yeah, to try to kind of get myself to safety. All right. So, I rolled a 6.
Cool. All right. Well, that's a success. So you just describe what that looks like.
As I noted, I'm kind of short and slight, but I mean, this is definitely one of these cases where, if any of the other people on these other boats are looking at us, they probably thought, oh, too bad for them. But then, I kind of put my back to the oars and really start getting into a rhythm. I'm able, I think part of it too is I'm able to kind of start timing the waves correctly, and between kind of my actual strength, but also my ability to kind of read the waves. I'm kind of able to kind of get our boat moving along, and certainly trying to bringing them away from those really sharp rocks that would surely do us in if we crashed against them.
Nice. Yeah, and as you the storm is not only are the waves raging, but now it's starting to rain on you, and just this full storm, and almost like the sea reacted to this somehow. Just unnatural, came out of nowhere. But you're timing it, you're watching it, you have the strength, you kind of dig really deep at the right time and push the little boat forward. And there's a moment as you're approaching, there's a rock, and you just kind of nudge it the right way, and you get right past and avoid collision, and you skid right up onto the sand. And you both do manage to get out of the boat on time to avoid being smashed. But now the rain is pelting down on you. The skies are fully dark, and you hear thunder rumbling, and you kind of look back and you see there's the last few boats. Some seem to be struggling, but they're making their way back towards the village. And even if you don't know if folks just didn't worry about you or if they really couldn't get to you, but for the time being, you're alone on the island. And the tide's high, crashing against the rocks.
I think the boat's probably small enough we might be able to invert it for a little bit of shelter. Keep some of the worst of the rain off of us.
Nice. Yeah, until you can haul it onto the sand between the two of you. As you look around, it's very, some of the rocks are slippery. There's seaweed and algae. You're kind of looking for where you're going to take shelter. First, it's just this rough cliff face. But as you start to kind of orient yourselves, you see there's kind of gaps in the rocks, and you can actually find like a fissure where there's like a bit of shelter you can kind of duck under away from the rain. And as you're making your way over the sand, your boot, Orlin, actually, after you have dragged that boat up, your boot sticks against something in the sand. You can look down and you see it's like a book. It's almost totally fallen apart, but the leather of it is still kind of intact. It's very waterlogged, but it looks like it was very finely made at some point. Very, very fine leather. And you kind of look around, you see a couple other scraps here and there that maybe there was the wreckage of another ship. You see you see a piece of what looks like broken pottery. You think of like in museums where there's like that Greek pottery or something where there's like, painting or engraving on the outside of it. So like looks like very ornamental, maybe once very valuable treasures have washed up on the shore. Kind of confirming some of the things you've heard about shipwrecks happening around here.
Nothing in a condition that would make it worthwhile as far as like actually valuable.
Not quite, no, but you can tell these things were once probably valuable.
Yeah, I certainly would pick up that book, and hoping that maybe if the paper is good and the ink is good, maybe there's still something that could be read in that book that would give me a sense of what the ship was that crashed.
Yeah, the rain's come down. It's like half buried in the sand. It's muddy. You like almost toss it back, but you're looking at like, this is well made. I'm going to look at this in a minute. As you're at the same time, Basso, you've seen there's a entrance to not a full cave, but at least like a cleft in the rock where you can both duck out of the way and take shelter.
The seas rejected that. You should too. Get in here.
And, I'm not going to reject the book, but I would scurry on in, right, to get some shelter.
Mm-hmm. And you we're kind of coming to the end of ring 2 here as you duck in and take shelter, and you're just looking out, and it's uncanny. Like the day started relatively, it was overcast, but the water was calm, and this event happened, and the sea seemed to react, and you're stuck here for the time being, but you're generally in the right place. You just kind of have to wait out the storm and wait till the tide recedes again, and then maybe you can see that spot the fisherman was talking about.
And I think Orland would especially occasionally glimpse out to where the Tide Queen, was released to see. He's still not convinced that there's anything really supernatural, but just to be sure, I think occasionally he kind of glances out there to that rough location where the Tide Queen was released into the water.
Yeah, and it's not very far. I'm kind of picturing like there's like an inlet of this island where there's definitely big cliffs, but the water comes right in, and you can tell where they threw it in must go down pretty deep. And you're kind of on this edge where there's sand. And as you're watching the waves keep coming in and crashing, there's kind of a calmer spot where the flow of the water it doesn't quite react. And you see by the way, there's been seagulls kind of coming and going here and there. Some of them are also kind of sitting above you, and there's their droppings here and there, and there's algae. And you see some different seabirds. A pelican flies down to that calm spot of the water, and it dips its head, and you see them coming and going, carrying off fish. You see one in particular that seems like it's just been grabbing. Maybe there's just a big flurry of a school of fish under the water. And you see duck its head and come up and gobble a fish, and do this several times, and its gullet is just overflowing. And you see it kind of trying to take off, and it's almost weighed down with how much it's grabbed. As you're just go to almost point this out, or you're paying attention to it, something comes up from the water, and you just see this surge, and it looks like a shape just snatches it. It looks like a shark comes up, grabs this pelican, and pulls it under the water. But other than that, the water's calm again. Things continue. The storm continues. Now it's kind of just a steady rain. But we'll move on to ring 3. As you are both finding shelter from the rain, you kind of notice there's actually some dry sand in this cleft. Like it goes further back than you would have thought at first. And you see there's like an empty bottle, like maybe someone took shelter here before. And as you're kind of finding a place to sit and dry off for a second, you notice there's a satchel, like a leather bag that seems to be in fair condition and contains some basic, it's got a little small wineskin. It's got some hardened bread and cheese. Looks like enough for a meal that someone left here. Nothing fancy, but enough to give you some sustenance.
And it hasn't gone off. It's still edible food. So
yeah, it's almost from what you can tell, no one's else is on this little island, but maybe someone came here before and was staying over as you are and kind of forgot their supplies.
Kind of hold it out to Orland. And now, why would someone taking shelter in such a dire place leave behind their sustenance?
Yeah, I'll say, can I take a look at that cheese?
Hand it over and say, looking, I'll give you permission, but if you want to eat it, that's going to be on you. I don't trust it.
Yeah, but I think, Orland would, look at it, smell it a little bit, and, he'd take a cautious bite and see what it tastes like. And if it seems edible, I think I would use the opportunity for a little sustenance.
Mm-hmm. It's actually quite good. What are some flavors in there? It's like maybe a harder dried cheese, but there's something that's been added that gives it something special. I would almost say something that reminds you of home, where you came from.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like I wonder if maybe there's a strong kind of chili or something like that is kind of added to it. not fiery hot, but certainly something that kind of gives it a little kick.
Nice. Yeah, it's almost like maybe it's not something the village made. Someone brought this from somewhere else
Right.
too, but it's comforting. And while you're both kind of huddling and waiting it out, what is this? So you're presumably you've come a fair distance to this place. You're definitely alone, kind of facing the elements. You're sheltering for a little bit. But what is this? What do you think about in your time when you're sheltering? What do you miss from home? You're still soaking wet. It's cold. You're not the most comfortable right now.
I think I'm kind of going the opposite way, not thinking of comforting stuff, but kind of poking at that discomfort, like a wound. This is. I feel like Orlin is. It's not supernatural. It's just a quaint customs they have, and he's willing to participate. And Basso is the opposite of like, no, this is definitely supernatural. The ocean is literally malevolent, and that is why I'm not participating in this. Mm-hmm. And just thinking that all of this is the ocean trying to stop us, and like just kind of reveling in revenge fantasies, like picturing it. We're gonna get out of this. You're not gonna stop us. We're gonna plumb your depths and steal your treasures from the very bosom of you, queen under the waves. So not taking any comfort at all and just enjoying the physical sensations of being miserable in this little crevasse.
And you mentioned that your brother, maybe, did you hint in the beginning he was getting into things that were a little weird, or I forget what you said there.
He had seen, just before our boat crashed, he claimed he had seen the lighthouse that was the dark house or the dark beacon. I don't remember exactly what we were describing as, but like the lure to the doom rather than safety.
Okay.
Just before he went down with the ship.
Orlin, you mentioned you were going to look at that book later. Do you kind of share that, or you save that till you have a private moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming back to the dry spot, I mean, I think as I'm kind of, I imagine I'm a little weary from my physical exertion, kind of getting our boat safely onto the shore. So, as I'm having some of that cheese, I kind of like sit down and get myself a little bit of rest. But while I'm doing that, I probably would casually kind of take that book out, kind of open it up, start letting it air out, right? Probably kind of wave some of the pages a little bit to kind of get them just to, and kind of look through and see if I can see that there's any writing that still is in some type of legible state on there.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a very sturdy leather, cover to it, and it's got one of those clasps, so it's like folded tightly shut. And as you open it, I mean, it's washed up from the ocean. Like most of it is just soaked through, and most of the ink is washed away. But you kind of find at some point, it's almost like the top section of a lot of the writing is, because it was clasped tightly, the water didn't quite soak through to that somehow. And it's a strange thing, because there's snatches of writing and it's mostly washed away, illegible. But the bits you see, you kind of don't seem to make any sense. They're just like some history book at first, but here and there, like certain names start to stand out, like that's kind of familiar. And you start to piece together, you swear that this is something related to your family history. You mentioned the history with the cult, or at least indirectly, like there's names that maybe they're distant relatives, but you're like, am I just imagining that? In the same way that you're like, did I imagine a real expression on that effigy? Like, that wasn't quite real. Like, I'm just kind of thinking this is connected, and it's not. But eventually you come to a page that's just got one sentence written on it, and it just it says something about the the legacy of the family line. The final act was completed by Orlin, who gave himself to the waves. And it names you directly. And then as you kind of glance at it again, it's like the writing's kind of half smudged, half washed away. Like you look at it again and it says like a slightly different name. You can't tell if that's what you read. I want to have you make a ruin roll as well. It's very strange.
So I rolled a 2.
Yep. Yeah, so you're fine. It doesn't go above that 4. You shake it off. Hard to read.
Yeah, hard to read. And I'd say, well, and there must be other people named Orlin as well. It may just be a kind of really bizarre coincidence, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't really react visibly that much.
I don't think you get a big reaction out of me, although I think I certainly would be pausing over that page, kind of considering, what are the odds, right, that my name would be there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing you don't bring anything up. You just kind of shake it off. So
I think for right now, I do. I do think that though in private, I think what I would do with that page is I think I would rip that page out of the book and maybe wrap it around my little statuette, and then put that into my pouch.
Cool. And yeah, as you're kind of waiting out the storm, as you're kind of maybe at some point you try to make a little space in the sand, and you actually, oddly enough, you find that there's been a few pieces of dry firewood and tinder, like someone had brought supplies and planned to have to spend the night or something, and never made use of them. But you actually find the means to make a little bit of a fire if you need to kind of rest or looking out. It's actually hard to tell how much time has passed because the weather doesn't seem to be changing. So at some point, whether it's the warmth of a fire or Basso, if you're just gonna tough it out and think about what's ahead, it's up to you. But at some point, both of you will need to probably take a rest and sleep.
Really don't trust that there is food and firewood in here.
Mm-hmm.
It seems really suspicious, but it is also cold. So if Orlin makes any move or overture towards, we should have a little bit of fire. Yeah. Okay. And I kind of, at first subtly, but then if he won't respond to it, outright ask about like any reaction from having eaten that cheese. Like, how'd that settle with you?
Yeah, and I don't think I ate all of it, and I would say it's perfectly fine cheese, especially if you like cheese that has a little bit of a spicy kick to it.
I've got a sensitive stomach in my old age. I'll leave it for you. But he is looking at that wineskin now. Doesn't seem to have been any immediate consequences. So he will start with a little sip and really not even wait long enough for there to be any reaction of a test sip. Be like, yeah, that was fine. I'll have some more.
Yeah, it's not sour. It's not turned. Yep. Yeah. How does you got any tasting notes? What does the wine taste like to you?
I think from not where he lives now, but like from the land of his youth, they made a wine out of the very earliest grapes. And I don't even know when you harvest grapes, but like as soon as they're like little baby grapes, and it has a certain brightness to it. And this isn't that. Like, that would have been very strange, but it has a reminiscence of that, and it kind of reminds him of the first wines he had when he and Vero had snuck off and causing mischief and breaking into the winery, I guess, to have some before they were allowed to. So he does sort of reminisce a little bit while he's drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Not enough to smile or stop scowling or anything, but a little bit of reminiscing.
Yeah, both these flavors are surprising. Again, everything else is miserable and it's been weird, but somehow there's just enough of a taste of these things to remind you of better moments in your past and remind you that the things you came here to do, that ultimately it's gonna be worth it. You feel like, okay, you're gonna rest up, you're gonna Basso, you're going to really make peace, figure out what happened with your twin here, whatever that means to you. Actually, is there any other thoughts you have about that?
How do you mean?
So your drive to make peace with your drowned twin, is it? I forget what you said at the beginning.
I mean, initially it's sort of like at least half or more of vengeance
Okay.
on the sea for taking him, but also a little bit of like, what was it like? He said he saw the dark beacon, and did he, or was it error, or like what is going on? Can I just stop having the thought of him nagging at the back of my brain in one way or the other?
It sounds kind of like you're gonna prove yourself, sort of conquer, kind of overcome this ocean, and kind of lay all that to rest in some way. And Orlin as well. You're both of you are ultimately at one point or another falling asleep to take a rest. But you're remembering you wrapped up that little coral statuette, and you're just thinking about how this place where they've dropped this treasure must be quite deep, and no one goes there to dig things back up. So that's probably the best place to leave it and really get rid of it, and maybe whatever has been looking back at you, whatever power is here, maybe that will just kind of neutralize this for good, and you can truly let that go. But eventually both of you, do one of you take watch? You both just fall asleep? Does it matter?
I mean, I don't know that we really have anything to watch against.
Yeah.
But unless Orlin...
Yeah, I don't know that Orlin would feel like we need to take watch, although I do feel like, Orlin, is always a light sleeper. So, he would, always be getting up periodically in the middle of the night, probably taking, if he kind of woke up a little bit, he'd probably stand up and spend a minute kind of looking out of the little protected area outside, and then kind of go back into to catch a little bit more sleep.
Yeah, when you do kind of step out and look outside, it's almost like the storm is surrounding this island. You can't quite make out where the horizon is, and that's a little disorienting as far as how much time has passed. It's a little bit odd, and so you figure you rest a little bit longer, check on it later. Orlin, while you do sleep, at some point you have a dream, and you feel yourself drifting underwater like you have on many other dives, and you're very sure in your strokes. You're moving very deliberately, looking around the bottom of actually the same coastline where you pulled up on. You're in your dream diving down where they threw the treasures, and you're carrying this piece of coral, and you're looking for the best spot to leave it. And at some point you come down, and there, kind of on the bottom of the floor, is that effigy that had fallen down, and it's swaying in the current, and it's upright, and you have that strange sensation again of this ancient thing regarding you, And she opens her arms and moves with the current and comes forward to embrace you. And you find yourself just kind of drifting and embraced and wrapped in seaweed, almost as if you're becoming this effigy. And you try to struggle and swim away, as you're so strong and confident. And somehow none of that is helping you at all. And the seaweed, the kelp wraps around you tighter, and you feel yourself encased in a statue yourself, and you wake up. And your coral effigy that you had in your pouch is missing. But between those two things, I want to have you make another ruin roll.
Okay, I got a 3 on that.
All right. Just a bad dream. We're gonna come back to that effigy in a second. Because Basso, as you're sleeping, your dream of being on a boat, and it's like the rowboat you both brought in, but now it's just you and your brother, Vero, I think you said, and you're both. He's giving you directions. You're rowing, and he's saying, I've seen this lighthouse here. It's just we got to get through this mist, and it's foggy, and you can't see anything clearly. But you're trusting. Your brother has seen this. He's told you about it. He's seen something, and you're going to find out what it is. And he keeps kind of trying to see through the mist and have you row a little harder one way or the other. And at some point you look up and you indeed see a shadowy lighthouse like he was talking about. It's almost like it's made out of smoke or shadow, and inside of it there are these little lights moving, kind of spiraling, like there's maybe floating lanterns or something trapped inside of it. And then as you approach it, your sense of up and down just shifts all of a sudden. One moment in this dream, you're on this boat on top of the water, and then you're upside down under the water, and your boat's on top of you. And the lighthouse is upside down, and everything just swirls and overwhelms, and you wake up with a start. And you feel something hard in your hand. Your fist is grasped around it, and it's a coral statue. I don't know if you've seen it before, but Orlin, as you wake up, you both kind of come to consciousness. You see that Basso is holding your family heirloom.
It's a good question. Would I have seen it before or know that you have it?
Yeah, I think that's possible. You might have seen me periodically, taking it out and perusing it and putting it back in my pouch.
So yes, you see it. I guess you recognize that this is his, but now you're grabbing it in your hand. But the combination of that dream and waking up in this disorienting, you don't remember picking this up. I need you to make a ruin roll as well. Both of your ruin is so high, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a 1.
You're already so corrupted, nothing's gonna.
The good thing about a high ruin, it's harder to get it again.
Yeah. Nice.
What? I kind of look up to see, like, my first thought is, oh boy, Orlin's gonna accuse me of having stolen this from him, and I'm not sure it's obvious. I just woke up too.
Yeah, I mean, Orlin is certainly shocked and I think a little upset to see you with that, and asks, why did you take that from my pouch?
I didn't intend to. If it's something,
it is not really anything that you want to meddle in.
My boy, I think we're involved in many things we don't want to meddle in right now. Come, let us check the tide and see if we can be done with this ill business.
Yeah, and Orlin will step over to you and hold out his hand, saying, "Give it give it back. I am determined to take it to its rest, but you are not the resting place for this.
I gladly returned.
Yeah, and I think when you return it, I mean, Orlin looks at it, and puts it back in his pouch and makes sure that that pouch is tightly sealed now.
Two strange things you notice as you take it back. That sort of black, oily residue, whatever was on it, is gone. And as you put it back in your pouch, you find the coins that you've given to that statue, to the effigy, are back in your pouch. Almost like your gift has been returned to you. It's a little strange. You don't know what that means. But as you're putting that back, Basso, you're leading the way. You're both stepping out onto the shore. You do see the tide has started to recede. You don't know how long you've slept. Sense of time is confusing. It looks like it could be afternoon. Maybe only a few hours have passed. But the sky is cleared. The water's receded. You see more vivid green seaweed that's on the surface of the rocks. The shore's a little further down. You come up to your rowboat, and it's. Did you just pull it onto the sand so it wouldn't drift away?
Yeah, I think we pulled it in and turned it upside down too,
Okay,
so it wouldn't get filled with water.
You see right on the top of it a big hole. It's just been smashed right in the bottom of it very deliberately. You're not sure what that means. You don't know if someone's sabotaging your mission here. From what you can tell, no one else is on this island.
If I kind of look around, do I see like the rock or the object that might have caused the big hole?
Yeah, I think you kind of look right into the like there's a hole with the splintered wood, and right in the bottom of it, a rock is sitting there. It doesn't have any seaweed on it or anything. It's almost just dry, just like the boat, but it's been smashed. So you're not sure how you might return at this point. But is he? Yeah, suspicious. You look around. There's parts where the rocks are forming little tide pools, and you see in one of them there's a crab crawling around the bottom, and you see this blur movement. An octopus, a small purple octopus, is grappling with this crab, and it's trying to snap at the octopus, and they're just locked in this struggle. It's hard to tell if both are trying to eat the other or fight each other off. Just a weird little scene playing out in this miniature ocean right in front of you. But as you see, the tide has receded. You definitely see where, looking back to where the offerings were dropped into the ocean, it's receded quite a bit. The waves still come in and crash and recede, but it's almost forming this cavern, the sides of a cave, going down and into the rocky crag of the island. So it's almost like a tunnel that was just under the surface. And it's
Look down at the boat and look at the receding tide and trying to figure out what the most important thing is. And no, there's sort of the curiosity of who or what has done this to the boat and is trying to sabotage us. It's not stopping us from doing what we need to do now. Kind of just look at Orlin and gesture, and I imagine we have sacks and probably some other supplies, and pull those out and get them ready.
actually, when you go to pull out your supplies, it looks like someone's gone through them, and anything that was useful or valuable to you, unless it was something hidden on your person, your basic supplies are missing.
Well, that's a horse of a different color then. Although, young man, I know you don't much care what you get out of this. It's more what you're leaving behind. Would you be sad if you came out empty-handed?
Well, I wouldn't be sad. I think it would depend on whether I was successful in getting rid of what I need to get rid of. That's more important. But I have a feeling that if I'm successful in laying my heirloom to rest, it will also mean bringing something back out of the ocean that will be valuable to both of us. The ocean can take and the ocean can give, and I think that's at least what I'm hoping for.
Well, all I was wondering is if you'd be sad if we didn't have our sacks and to load up on treasure. I'll take that as a no. And I think I've got a way to do what I need to do down there without hauling anything out. So if it's just the same to you, let's say we go down there as is.
Yeah, and I think when you say that, you can see that Orlin is getting himself ready. I mean, he's nodding and yeah, he's kind of going over and looking at the area as the tide is going down, and clearly mentally kind of getting himself ready to go into the water.
Some very strange coincidences have been happening, from the time you got to this island and the passage of time and the reaction of the water and your dreams. I just want to kind of ask each of your characters directly, like, do you trust the other? Is there any feelings you have about that at the moment, or not?
Don't have a reason to distrust him. Seems his motives are relatively straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Orlin, the only thing that crosses his mind is how did he get my heirloom statuette? Although, right, it is kind of dawning on Orlin that certainly there are kind of unexplained events that are happening here. We have the hole in our boat, the fact that our the sacks and supplies that we needed had been removed.
And yeah, nothing out overt right now. I'm just curious how they felt about that. As you start to prepare to go into this cavern, you're looking around. You're seeing it's actually quite beautiful. As the waters receded, there's the bright colors of the seaweed. There's starfish that are, colors of purple, purple and blue. It's almost like everything has been gray and overcast and kind of murky above the water, and below, as the tides recede, it's revealing all the kind of majesty of the ocean underneath. And you see a semi-precious stones. It almost looks like different pebbles or different opals of green and reddish hues. And there's more tide pools where the water hasn't completely washed away, and you see little fish flitting back and forth in there, and they're bright greens and blues. Each of you sees something, some sort of treasure, something valuable that glints as you're kind of starting to wade your way into the water. And I'd like for each of you to take a moment to describe something you spot before the other. Something that's clearly worth something.
This is before the cave, right?
Yeah, you're starting to wade towards it. You're kind of seeing in the little tide pools, kind of just under the surface.
So I think at first, I think it is actually an animal, like starfish, but it is like a diamond and gold necklace of a starfish that's crafted in such detail, and like also appreciating the asymmetry of an actual living thing. It isn't like rigidly symmetrical, but it is more beautiful for not being so.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Do you show your companion? Do you just take it?
I don't show him like, hey, look at this, but I pick it up without trying to hide it, and it's small enough. I probably shove it in a pocket rather than put it on.
Nice.
So like pick it up by the chain and
Sure.
drop it in. I barely even slow down to appreciate it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been affected by the elements yet. Maybe it was even something recently tossed in there, but it's quite beautiful and unique. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Orlin sees a necklace that's made out of various semi-precious stones, and I think that one of the things that's surprising about it is that living near the ocean and with kind of merchants traveling, there's sometimes jewelry and other fine things that have come from some great distance. And the necklace, I think, reminds me of some jewelry that I saw many, many years ago that was not native at all to anywhere in this area, but that had clearly kind of passed, had originated from some, distant land that I kind of thought of as very kind of exotic because it was so remote. But for some reason now here's this piece of jewelry that definitely kind of resembles some of this jewelry that had been brought from afar.
Yeah, and the village, when you've been there, doesn't strike you as like a major settlement of trade or anything. It's fairly isolated. There's been I'm going to say maybe other villages you've passed on the way. So as far as you can tell, you're, in the world we were describing, fairly isolated. So it's extra valuable in that way. It's traveled very far. What do you do with it?
I think I definitely pick it up and examine it, and I think I put it on. Then I just
It's a necklace. Nice.
Yeah, put it over my head.
Nice. Yeah, and it gleams in the light, and it's again untarnished by the elements. Everything underfoot. There's more barnacles. Oddly, you still have your barnacles there on your wrist. Barnacles and seaweed and everything that you can tell the tide's been coming in and out. But these objects you found have not been altered in any way. And that's as you're starting to make your way towards the cave here. The water's about knee deep, still fairly clear. The sky is clear, so you can see right to the bottom underfoot. And you see at some point a skull that looks fairly old that's under the water, and there's seaweed growing on the top of it that's swaying in the current. It almost just looks like hair is coming off of the surface of this skull. You see other more fragments of things that maybe they were from shipwrecks, maybe they were offerings. Some broken, looks like very very rusted pieces of chain or maybe manacles floating in the water. There's like a scrap of wood, maybe from a ship or a chest or something, with more barnacles and seaweed and stuff like that on it. more evidence that, maybe other ships have crashed here in the past. But you're come up to the entrance of the cave, and you see a clear way further inward to kind of go further down into the depths. Now we're at the end of ring 3, so we can take a break if you want, or we can continue to ring 4. How y'all feeling?
Yeah, I think another little like short 5-minute would be
5-minute break. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
See you in 5. Sounds good. All right. How are you guys doing? Good. Cool.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Probably have an hour or so left, I'd imagine. 2 more rings to go. It's funny because with that ruin, you start out high, and then it's hard to make it go higher.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, it's kind of almost gaming the system. Like, take a bunch of rituals, and then nothing bad can happen to you. Yet.
Yeah. And I'm still trying to get a feel for it. I'm probably too nice, but again, I don't know. I feel like I like to let you all kind of invent your own consequences. But yeah, you have all those rituals. You can definitely start to throw them around and see what happens.
I've got some plans for at least one of them. We'll see
Cool.
what else
Yeah.
comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. All right. All right, so that's the end of ring 3. So, yeah, ring 4. You're at the entrance to the cave that you've heard about. Seen traces of treasure kind of leading into it on the bottom of the water. You make your way a little further in, and you notice something else odd that's under the water. Actually, both of you, as you're kind of looking at where to go next. There's a pair of old boots that's under the water, and it's bound to a larger boulder with some old rope. And both the boots and the rope are covered with barnacles, and it looks like they've been there for quite some time, submerged under the water. A little crab climbs up out of the side of the boot and clambers back down and scurries on its way under the water.
Well, I guess it could be a sacrifice that they made, huh? Said whatever they could give, but seems like there might be someone walking around on here without their boots.
Yeah, is it so these are underwater? Is it shallow where they?
Yeah, so as you're kind of wading towards the cave, it's like knee deep. Maybe it's getting a little past, maybe more like thigh height.
Mm-hmm.
And the water's still coming and going. It's fairly calm because you're kind of in the shallow part of what started to be a tunnel. So the tide has receded. There's kind of a window of time for what you can tell to kind of get further in there. As you all kind of can make your way in to the cave, there's enough light to sort of see, through. You can see the current still comes and goes. Pieces of wood start washing towards you a little bit more. One of them looks like it's a little curved, like maybe it's a part of a chest or something like that. And you notice this together, unless one of you's going on. Are you going in together? Are you going ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm, I think Orlin is just mainly interested in kind of pushing forward to see what's there, and if Basso is happy to come along, that's perfectly fine.
Definitely in more of a strength in numbers kind of feeling. Like, I'm not actually. What is Orlin's mood now? Like, I definitely am feeling wary and like not exactly sure what we're going to see, and I'm wondering what he's expecting and how he's carrying himself.
Well, I think Orlin is, he's obviously on his guard a little bit, but I think also Orlin is excited. I mean, that this is kind of something we've been told about, and clearly there are signs that this is where treasure has, kind of, it's almost like breadcrumbs kind of leading us here. And I mean, I think even though Orlin doesn't say it, right, he's also periodically kind of making sure that little statuette is still there, because he's hoping that there will become this right, that he will come to the opportunity to kind of get rid of this heirloom, and this may be the place.
Mm-hmm. Actually, one thing too, Orlin, you noticed that was a little bit weird was when you reached down to get that necklace, when your hand went under the water, the barnacles on your wrist, you know, the way barnacles kind of open and close, like to, I guess, feed on the nutrients. Yeah, they started acting like living barnacles under the water. Still very much there. A little unsettling. What about you, Bazo? How are you feeling about this going in?
Trepidatious.
Yeah.
There have been signs, and like he definitely does believe in the supernatural, and the sea is a living thing. And not exactly sure about this particular goddess that they believe in, or probably has heard rumors of the more malevolent one that Orland's family followed. But there's something going on, and determined to go do what Bazo needs to do, but like not sure what's going to come up. Kind of glad he's not by himself. Sort of glad that Orland doesn't seem nearly as worried.
Yeah. And you're, as a lighthouse keeper too, you spent all this time just kind of biding your time, watching your storms come and pass. I'd imagine at least a part of you is good at that. You actually have that skill in there too of observation. So just kind of, keeping an eye out as you go in. But as you both start to walk into the tunnel and you see scraps of wood wash up, you see that it's coming from a chest that's floating in the water. That's the first thing you see. Then you notice that there are 2 corpses floating in the water as well. And it looks like they're both grasping onto that chest. And one of them, at least, is grasping the other. And it looks like they were involved in some kind of struggle to the death. You see one of them has still holding a dagger that's been plunged into the back of the other one, which was holding onto the chest. As you make your way a little bit closer, the current kind of comes in and goes, and they start to turn slowly in the water. And you see small, the water's very clear actually for the most part. You see a couple little fish coming in and nibbling at the corpses. But you both recognize the faces as your own. I need you to both make ruin rolls.
And which one's holding the dagger and which one was stabbed?
Interesting. I did not think about that specifically. I'm gonna, I think who. So I will say who. Who walks up to the chest first? We'll put it that way.
Well, I was kind of thinking I was gonna. Well, first I'll tell you, I did roll over my ruin.
Nice.
So it has gone up to 5. So get ready to hit me with that. And I was going to say that I would hang back and kind of see Orland's reaction, because I know he's suspicious because I had his idol, and see what he reacts to. So I guess I would give him the opportunity to be going forward.
Yeah, I rolled a 1, so I'm okay. But I think when I see them, I don't, I'm holding myself together, and I think I look back to Basso and say, maybe this is a sign of what we need to avoid. We need to avoid allowing, jealousy over riches to, turn us against each other. But I'll kind of wait on over to the chest and say, I certainly am not going to withhold anything valuable from you.
And I certainly wouldn't take anything of value from you, especially your heirloom.
I think I'm going to also let that ruin roll inform this a little bit, because Basso, as as Orland turns and says that to you, you're not sure why, but you're absolutely certain that he's lying, that you have this very deep suspicion now. As he's saying that, and you look and you see that the corpse that has been stabbed, the face is your own, and the face that's stabbed is Orland's. And you know that he's, in your mind, he's just, that's what he's planning to do to resolve this in the end. That he's not going to forget that you were holding his little idol, even though you have no idea how it came to be in your hand. But you can't shake off that suspicion. So that's your condition now from the ruin going up.
Suspicious?
Yeah, just suspicion. You suspicion that his plan is to ensure your death is the way to get to his own end.
Yeah, that makes sense with the
kind of
the events.
Mm-hmm. But Orland, you don't, Basso seems to react a little strangely, or you're not really sure. Seems very, very edgy as you say this, but as you're going to look in this chest here, as you open it, there's something that each of you recognize that is, again, something from your past. Maybe it's something from your childhood or something important besides your own heirloom that would have had no way of getting here. I'd like you to each maybe describe what that is.
From our childhood
or past, or anything that you absolutely did not take here with you, but there it is in the chest. I also have a table, by the way, if you want to just roll something for fun. Up to you.
Yeah, I have an idea that I see these brightly painted, they're kind of like smooth stones that have been brightly painted, and they're from my childhood. That when my parents were teaching me how to be a free diver for the kids, there would be these kind of brightly painted stones that would be thrown into the water for the kids to retrieve. So they're not especially valuable, but these seem very much like those kind of training toys that they would use for young kids to teach them how to dive deep.
That's really cool. And you do notice though that they look like they've been under the ocean for a long time, which is weird. They have either, whether it's seaweed or barnacles, or the things that have grown over it, or that whatever that residue, that black residue you described being on your idols, on those things.
And I think I see a small carved wooden boat that is, I mean, I'm sure it's not the same, but it is very similar to the one that my father made on his own for my brother and I, that we had to share. And to kind of appease us, he had carved both of our initials, one on one side of the boat, like HMS B whatever, and the other side with the V for Vero.
Cool. And I want to take a moment just to mention that when your rune gets to 5, so for Basso, you can, at this point, you can start to do what's called a reduction roll, where you one little point away from the ocean totally claiming you. But at this point, you can deliberately do things that are in the interest of the ocean to try to reduce that ruin. So you could try to betray your companion. You could try to destroy treasure. You could interrupt any rituals.
That's interesting because, like, I wanted to destroy treasure, so it seems like I shouldn't be able to.
Oh, for you? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty open interpretation, I guess. So if you look in the little the trophy keeper, it's got a rule summary. If you look under reduction roll, It's basically you're now trying to sabotage your party members. So it says, yeah, you can destroy treasure, sabotage fellow treasure hunters, prevent the use of rituals, trying to make it look like an accident so it's not drawing attention to yourself. But now at any point, you can start to do that and roll a single light dice, and you have to roll under your ruin. And if you do, you get to bring your ruin down one.
Okay.
Yep. So just keep that in mind. And if there's anything you want to do from now on, just interrupt me and let me know. Even if there's something you want to do now in reaction to this, you're welcome to.
I don't think there's anything I can think of that's subtle enough to be like, that was an accident.
Sure.
You're like, oh, Orland's reaching for the stones, and I shut the chest on his.
Fair enough. I just want to make sure I mention it in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, both, again, the shock of those objects, it's very strange, but you also just saw your own faces on these corpses, so you don't need to make another ruin roll on top of that. It's just kind of part of the picture. But they were clearly in a struggle to the death over this treasure. And let's scroll down for a second. But as you're kind of taking in this, looking at these pieces of treasure, you feel the water that's been kind of coming and going. You've got used to this rhythm kind of coming up past your knees, to your thighs, coming back down. It starts to surge, and it feels like the tide is coming in very abruptly. Again, the way the weather has been acting is very, just seems to be completely, the ocean has its own mood that you can't predict. And you both turn and you see that the tide is just rushing back in towards you. And you look, and there's almost like a big wave, and you can kind of see deep into it, the deep color of the water behind it. And I would like just to take a moment to come back to those stories you both had heard at the very beginning, and tell me if I'm leaving stuff out. But Baza, you'd seen that or heard about that shadowy lighthouse. And Orlin, you'd seen spirits of the ocean. Actually, that's what I'm interested in here. Whatever you caught a glimpse of when you were diving before, you see something like that again. Almost like when you see that picture of a wave with a shark swimming deep down in there. You see a shadowy shape that reminds you quite a bit of that. There's anything you want to describe about it?
Yeah. So again, I think as this is happening, I catch that kind of glimpse of some big object, some big shadow, but it has, possibly those human limbs. And I guess I'm wondering, because there was also that big effigy of the Tide Queen that also was sunk in. And so I'm kind of pondering whether, okay, this seems like it may be a once again that this kind of dim form that I caught some glimpses of, but I'm also wondering if it might be the Tide Queen, or if maybe there is some connection between those forms that I saw and the Tide Queen. And I probably try to kind of focus myself to kind of see if I can pick it up more clearly.
Yeah, so shadowy, looks like several like human limbs or just a pair or whatever. And just out of character for a second, I want to mention the rules in Trophy specifically say if you try to fight any monsters you meet, you'll die. It's meant to, the structure's meant to basically keep pushing you further and further in. So the way the mechanics are set up is that you can try to do rituals or make risk rolls to distract or escape or work your way around obstacles. But just to make sure I said that out of character, your characters are desperate and don't really have the means to directly fight monsters. So that's fun. Yeah, you try to get a closer look, and the the waves are just rushing right back at you, and both of yours are thrown off balance. And as you reach out to kind of steady yourself, the rocks and the barnacles, the coral on the rocks are sharp and kind of scratches your hands a little bit. And you see your blood, each of you is mixing with the water and tinging it slightly pink. And now kind of each have the vague thought that, how sharks are drawn to the scent of blood. And your blood is now mixed with the salt water and it stings. And this creature, Orlin, as you're looking at it, trying to make out if it's the effigy or if it's something else, the water just rushes right at you. And right before it washes you both kind of prone and into the tunnel, you do see it very clearly, and it is very, very much real. It's not a shadowy form. It is, again, if there's any details you want to add to it from your story, you're welcome to, or otherwise. Is there any other details you notice as it's coming right up close to you?
Yeah, I think I get a glimpse of its face, and I think the feature that really strikes me is the mouth and the razor sharp teeth, and I'm reminded of that ridge of sharp stone that we saw on the way here, and a kind of resemblance, right, to those razor sharp stones that I see in the maw of that figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally, like shark teeth, eel's teeth, as it was described. And this is definitely going to be a risk roll for both of you to kind of, or if you want to do a ritual, however you want to respond. But basically, the tide is surging in, is flooding the tunnel. You're losing your balance. And this creature's, as the water's higher, it's coming in from the ocean and threatening to devour you. How do you each try to make your escape or deal with this threat?
Yeah, let's go for it. Yep. This threat is not a threat for me. I know what Orlin has seen before. This is what he described from diving. This creature is coming for him. I just need to make sure it finds him and not me. Unfortunately, I have a ritual for luring, drawing the attention of anything nearby to a chosen object. Mm-hmm. And that object could certainly be someone's heirloom. Mm-hmm. Because I got to get my ruin down. Sabotaging the treasure hunting.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a great way to do that. Mm-hmm. So, all right, what does this ritual look like? So I think as a lighthouse keeper, it has to have something to do with light. Yeah. Okay. So it's striking a match, and I have no idea what the technology really is like in our time, but I know at some point a lighthouse would have like the light there, and then this part would turn around. So it's holding up the match and having it first the light angle at the creature and then turn towards the object that I'm trying to get it to go towards, and it disperses the light when it's worked. So
maybe even have like a mirror or something in your hand.
That makes sense.
Points the light at him. That's super cool.
So dice wise, it has to use a dark die because it's a ritual. And it's a signal to something, which is something I'm skilled at.
Nice. Yep.
Devil's bargains.
Any suggestions? I have one in mind, but Robbie, you have one?
Go ahead, and I'll see if something comes to mind.
I mean, I guess the simplest one to me is like it reflects back at you accidentally, and it backfires, and it draws attention to you instead.
Well, that's more of just failing.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you want it to. You're trying to draw the attention to him. Gotcha. I guess maybe as the light, somehow in doing that, it hits you. So maybe it draws attention to you as well as him. It's like a complication. Make sure I'm getting that right too. So, whatever happens, that will also happen, if that makes sense.
I'm trying to get us some light and dark colored dice. So I have a white and a blue. There's no black that I can see.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that, Robbie?
Um,
Trying to think what.
I think if not, I can just roll with the 2.
You can also, I'll wait.
We can see what
See,
happens.
Suggestion. Well, if Robbie has any other suggestions too, because you can propose your own too. It's kind of up to you ultimately what you accept.
The thing I think would be interesting is, well, this happens whether or not it's successful.
Right.
I was thinking that I would be. I'll just go with this.
Just go without no bargain. You can always add dice later.
And it's a 4 is the highest one, and that is a light colored die.
Okay.
So that then gives you success with the complication anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm still kind of trying to get a feel for that. So first the success. So describe what that looks like.
So I think you see this, I guess I'll say creature, is just kind of rushing headlong at first, and with almost like a snap to its head, it turns from rushing on at the both of us to looking at Orlin. But he also gets the sense, and this actually might end up being useful for him, that it is coming for the pouch that the heirloom is in. That is what it wants. And its eyes have lit up, and kind of like the pupils, if you can see them, the darkness within the darker shape have dilated a bit.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. I think the complication, just gonna keep it simple, that as you're focusing on this and casting this ritual, and you're aware the water's rushing in, but you're paying too much attention to that, and you are gonna lose your footing, and your ankle is gonna get sort of caught between some boulders. So now you kind of last moments before the water rushes in, you see this thing direct its attention right at Orlin. And the next thing you know, you're submerged underwater in this rush of the tide coming in, but your ankle's trapped. You're going to have to deal with that in a second. But for the meantime, Orlin, this creature is now seemingly fixated on you. What do you do? You kind of, I will say too, you have this kind of moment, because again, that's the water's rushing in, this thing is coming at you, and now it's specifically coming for you as the water starts to rise over your head.
I realized that I was sabotaging to try to roll.
Right.
What is it called? Reduction?
Yeah.
Something along those lines. So it needs to be below my ruin.
Right.
And it was.
Sweet.
Now I'm back to regular old 4 ruin.
And I hope I'm doing that right, like doing the whole ritual, but it seems to make sense that that's how you do it. So cool.
Yeah, so I'm also thinking about doing one of my rituals. And I think as it's now fixated on me and rushing towards me, I think I might go. Would my bind work?
Yeah, for sure.
To hold a person or animal in place. I don't know what kind of being this is, but I might try to attempt that ritual.
Cool. So it's just to get your dice together. It's a dark dice because it's a ritual, and then any other skills you have related to that. Or if not, we can go to Devil's Bargains.
Well, okay. I do have an ulterior motive with this, which is that there's part of me that actually likes the fact that it's rushing at me. But what's going through my head is I need to force the statuette or maybe the bag with the statuette into that maw. And that would obviously be pretty difficult to do without it being held in some way. And this would not be a straight up attack. I'm not gonna. I'm actually not wanting to kill it. But I'm kind of looking at. I mean, I'm actually looking to use the lure along with my hold, all as like some kind of scheme to pull this off. So part of what goes through my mind is, well, could I use? I mean, two things that could come into play here. One would be deception, right? That this whole tactic is a kind of ruse that I'm trying to pull off.
Yeah.
As well as possibly the swimming. I mean, if this would be something that would involve that skill to.
Yeah, I think either one. I guess it depends. So it sounds like either make sure you're trying to bind it, but make sure it still tries to get close enough to still get your little your relic there, or bind it and just swim away. I feel like you could do either one, but I think those might give you too clear actions that it looks like. So is there a preference?
I think, I mean, the most important thing for me is to get rid of the heirloom. So maybe I think for right now, like the deception would be
okay.
Right. I'm trying to kind of time this all out, kind of, actually being okay with the fact that it's lured to me, but trying to kind of get it positioned just so that when my ritual goes off, hopefully I will, have it, there so I could force that statuette into the maw.
That makes sense. So a light dice for that, a dark one for the ritual. Any Devil's Bargains, Keith? Or
so
what can go wrong?
So I'm trying to make sure I understand the whole thing you want to do. Like you did pick up the same thing. I was thinking, like, it's actually kind of good for you if this thing wants to swallow the heirloom, but you are trying to trick it into like thinking it's going to get you. And then what's the bind part doing?
Holding it still so that I can actually get that heirloom into its mouth
without getting the rest of you
without pulling
mouth.
Out. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. So something, the idea of the Devil's Bargain is it's something that will happen regardless of if you are successful.
We
I'm
are
wondering if there's. Go ahead.
At ring 4, things are escalating, so don't feel like you have to be nice about it either. You can propose bad things.
So the things I'm thinking are either something like the magic works too well and you are also held in place, or like you end up throwing something else into its maw as well, but I don't know that we've established anything that would be meaningful or interesting that you would throw in. Like we haven't really talked about our gear at all. So but I also don't know if having you stuck here in ring 4 is interesting either. Like, okay.
Well, we'll kind of play it out in the fiction. Yeah, either your spell, and I think the easy way that I look at some of those things is you don't know how long your spell is going to last. Basically, it might be that you're temporarily stuck when you didn't mean to be. That could be one. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I mean, another possibility I was thinking of would be dismemberment, right? That I force it in there, but I also would end up losing my arm along with the statue with those razor sharp teeth.
Yeah. Well, so I guess the thing is, you're number one, you're trying to make sure your ritual works out, and I think I don't know if that's the same thing as trying to. It sounds like that's setting up being able to feed it the effigy. So you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Not to make it too many different steps, but maybe either way, it does bite into you and injure you, and we can kind of see what happens with the dice.
Yeah.
But if you want to take that bargain, then go for it. This will be 2 light and 1 dark.
Okay.
Just tell me figure out which one's your dark dice. Or you just add more on the roller.
Yeah. So let me. So 2 light, and I'll roll those first. I'll just make them. As white as. Let me actually just. All right. So the 2 light, I rolled a 5 and a 1, and then the dark. I'll make that one purple. And I rolled a 5 for the dark die.
Nice. So that because that's equal to your highest one, if I'm getting this right, that counts as a ruin roll.
Okay.
So that's it's still a 5 as far as a mixed result, but it's going to make your ruin go up. So I think, what does your ritual look like when you're casting it?
Okay, so the bind. I think I think maybe it's something like I was thinking maybe something that would have to cause me some type of pain. I mean, maybe some. I mean, maybe what happens is, I have this great lung capacity, but for the bind, I totally exhale, removing all of the oxygen, and just kind of, I go into like almost this very quick oxygen depletion state, which is both a little painful, but also kind of makes me a little dizzy, as I try to then also focus on whatever it is that I'm trying to bind. And there's a kind of slightly altered state of consciousness that occurs with this oxygen depletion.
And anything that we sort of see if we're looking at this creature coming forward, anything that physically binds it, or is it just kind of an invisible that keeps it at bay?
Yeah, I mean, I think would, I think that it also probably, involves some kind of really intense direct eye contact that goes on between the two of us.
Mhm.
That when the bind works, that it clearly gets kind of focused on me, but you also will see that its muscles or whatever is kind of causing it to move. Suddenly, there's a kind of freezing that happens
Mhm.
with its limbs.
Almost like a basilisk, like the mesmerizing, the eye contact just locks it in place, sort of.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, and so that succeeds. The creature is just locked. Its muscles seize up, and it can't advance any further. But also, your ruin went up because of that.
Right.
So you're up at 5 again. So just this reminder from now on, you can do those reduction rolls, do devious things to bring it down again. But I think with that increase in your ruin, as you're casting the spell and you're locking eyes with this creature, I think what happens from there is you have this weird sensation. You almost identify with it. There's this predator that's about to just tear you apart, and you've kind of stood it down and locked it in place. But just as you've been discovering things and diving and seeking out treasures and bringing them back out, very intent, you feel this strange, like you're merging with what this creature is. You feel this strange hunger overcome you and kind of realize that you're a predator as well. And you have a weird desire that you now need to eat live prey, whatever that might mean. So kind of almost increasing whatever drive you had as a diver and a treasure hunter. Now you just want to hunt and consume. So that's your added condition. And I put on here, it's insatiable. So you're kind of, you can't really ignore it forever. But as that happens, it's locked in place. Am I forgetting the devil's bargain part? Did we say something that would happen?
Was it at the limb?
It would attack you as well.
Yeah.
So maybe that's where it happens too. Yeah, it lashes out and it's got claws, or maybe it's a pincer or something like that. But you succeed in locking it in place. In the process, it slashes out and yeah, said it ripped a hand or an arm off, we can say. That blood merges with the current. Just, you don't even feel the pain. You just feel the hunger now. That scent of blood in the water. And now both of you are completely submerged and washed deeper into the tunnel as the current takes over, pulling you deeper into the cave. And that's the end of ring 4. We got a minute before we progress. Do you all want to take a break, or you want to continue?
I'm good to keep rolling if you want.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Yeah, it kind of accelerates from there. So, again, yeah, Robbie, you're at 5 ruin, so you can always try to do things to reduce that. And just trying to recap, so you have the predatory hunger and you have the barnacles still growing and living on you. They haven't seemed to change much. And Keith, Bazo, your character, you're very certain that your companions here, his plan, it's actually like his plan is to sacrifice you, that one way or another, that he's willing to go that far. You just know it. Whether that's paranoia or whatever, that's your condition. So as the current swirls and drags you in, you kind of like that dream, Basso, that the surface and the depths kind of switching. All sense of up or down is just kind of reversed in this chaos. And you see other little bits of wreckage floating in the current. Pieces of that greenery from the effigy are just kind of washing past you like green branches. And you kind of realize it's probably from the effigy that was dropped earlier today. And you see bits of treasure and other offerings kind of swirling in the current too around you, like bits of like a fine scarf, a carved wooden toy, fresh food that was offered, all just kind of swirling around you. And you notice that the walls of the tunnel, so far they've been very covered in, things you'd see on the bottom of the ocean. Again, the coral and barnacles and seaweed and stuff like that. But they start to become smooth and almost like regular, like a structure, almost like steps, like it's either leading upward or downward, like a lighthouse on the inside, or maybe a big shell starting to curve. Again, you're just fairly disoriented and can't tell what's up or down. But it looks like it's something that was made by actual people and structure to it. And you see a slight glow coming from further down in the water as you're washed through this tunnel. Is there anything that y'all choose to do? You're just kind of caught up in the current in the meantime. And you I know you exhaled, Orland, but you're both kind of going to have to do your best to hold your breath or find a way to get some air soon.
So did you get your icon into the creature's mouth?
Oh yeah, we didn't really.
I know that's what you were trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What do y'all think? I guess it's sort of two things. You're trying to bind it to keep it from immediately just devouring you, but that succeeded. Could say you could do another risk roll if you want to before you're washed away.
Yeah, I could take try another risk.
That's my best interpretation anyway. I'm not quite sure how to roll with that.
I guess what would be satisfying for you, Robbie, like, because we've got this fifth ring that we're going to get pushed into. Do you want to have like tossed it in as you're getting pushed away from it, or toss it and not known if it went in and you're like, oh no, I don't know if I got it, or still have it and wonder what you're going to do and if we're going to get out?
Yeah, let's do the mystery one. Let's say that I as I was washed by it, I tried. I don't have it with me anymore, and I tried to get it in there, but I'm not certain.
That's cool. And we could say even it's like the hand that was holding it is what was torn off, so it's gone. Nice. You don't know if it counts. That's cool.
Took my hand. Did it also take?
Yeah.
And we're being like pushed by the current.
Yeah, almost like you're being sucked into this. Like spiral, like it's the inside of a shell or a lighthouse, but it's going deeper. Yeah.
And you said there's a glow?
Yeah, there's a glow coming from further in wherever these things are floating up from, or I guess it's swirling in the current.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I don't know how much time we have. I don't know how much stamina we have. Like that ritual took a lot out of me. I feel like there's probably something good in here that hopefully I can destroy and maybe make my way out, or if not, at least claim vengeance as my final act. So I'm trying to head in before I'm forced in.
Cool. Yeah. So you're both just kind of trying to hold your breath. The water sucks you further in. And now as the glow starts to increase a little bit, and it's almost like phosphorescent, like glowing jellyfish or creatures that glow in the ocean. I'm not remembering. Algae, I guess, where the plankton glows. Again, very beautiful, but very disorienting as you're just caught in this current. And eventually it sucks you around, you spin around, and it starts to open up into a bigger chamber. Again, you can't tell if it's totally upside down or if it's just gone upward, but it definitely, Basso reminds you that lighthouse that was under the ocean, the interior of it, and actually make sure I'm getting these right. Basso is the lighthouse keeper. Definitely looks familiar to you, the inside of that top of the lighthouse, wherever you would kind of keep watch and tend the fire or whatever it is. It looks like a version of that, but it's completely submerged underwater, and you're both sucked into this bigger chamber. And you immediately see that the glow is emanating from the center of this chamber. And there's a big pile of what looks like a a nest of bones and pieces of splinters of different timbers broken off from ships. There's like a mast and a sail kind of swirling in the water. And there's a figure sitting at the very seat of this, almost like it's a throne. And Orlin, you feel that immediate grip again, that just sense of being regarded by this powerful ancient being. You see that effigy looks like the form of the effigy, but it kind of shifts and the last pieces of the woven branches kind of fall away. And both of you know immediately this is the real living queen of the depths. And her form moves. It's made out of like different iridescent scales of fish. Her eyes are glowing. There's jellyfish floating around her. There's all sorts of creatures circling kind of around her like it's her underwater court. There's sharks, there's eels, there's other things in the shadows that you can't quite make out what they are, but deep sea creatures with big teeth and tentacles and things like that. But she regards both of you, and you both feel kind of pierced to your core as this ancient thing looks into your depths. I need both of you to make another ruin roll, please.
Made it under on that one.
Yeah, I rolled a 2, so good.
Nice. Yeah, so it doesn't, just the whole spectacle, you're both kind of locked in facing this thing floating in the water. You feel like your air is starting to run out. And you both notice that what looks like the ribs of the queen are, again, kind of like a basket, or maybe it's old whale bones or something like that. But different jewels, bright gems, untarnished gold are just spilling from the inside of her being. All these offerings that have been dropped down there for centuries, all the most valuable ones. And you both hear her voice kind of echoing in your head, kind of muted through the water. And she starts to tell you, how for centuries she's been giving all these offerings, and every offering has been sent with another prayer, another demand, and she's consumed all these things. You have something to say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. But tells you how her power has grown by consuming all these things, but she's still hungry. And she says, you both hear through your heads, why have you come to me? Have you given me something at last that will satisfy my hunger? Or are you just going to give me another worthless treasure? And she both holds up those things that you saw before that were those stones and that carved wooden ship, just items from your past.
Rather than answer her question,
Mm-hmm.
I would like to try to figure out what is most precious to her in this treasure trove.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm hoping is an active observation, because that is something I'm good at. And you can get a dark die for if you risk something. What is that?
Just basically risking your body and mind, like the risk of your ruin increasing. Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah, I'm willing to take that.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody has an obvious devil's bargain, I'll listen. Otherwise, I'm okay with 2. All right, I'll go with those.
Yeah, I can't think of any offhand.
I feel like it's like I had the same thing when I played Blades in the Dark. That was really hard to do that, and then it'd be like, you think of it, and then the person might be like, "No, I don't want to do that." You're like, "But I spent that time thinking of it."
Yeah.
Oh, got a 6 on the light colored die.
Wow, nice. So, you succeed. So, this is all where it gets pretty abstract. So, I mean, tell us how you succeed, and what do you see, and how do you know that it's the most valuable thing?
Can I roll on the treasure table?
Oh,
is
sure.
There something appropriate for
that? Let's see. So it's how do we do this? Oh,
should I roll for? I got a 6.
So it's a trying to think how to do this because I don't have it laid out the right way. It's a 36 item table.
Oh, so is it a 6x6 roll? Or
Yeah.
then I'll roll it again. First one is 6. The second one is also 6. So whatever's last on the table.
Very last. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm trying to think how this would work underwater. Well, yeah. So there's I'm going to say it's a vial, like a glass. Maybe it's a crystal glass vial that's very beautifully, like it's silver or gold, holding it together, like ornamented on the outside. And there are dried mushrooms harvested from the grave of a martyr or saint or whatever. So maybe that's in a pendant around her neck or something like that. We'll say probably super magical or something like that.
So I have a thing I would like to do to that, but if Orlin wants to do anything first, I will give Robbie a chance.
I think you said that oxygen was becoming scarce. The water is surging in. I think Orlin is hoping that he was successful in getting rid of the heirloom. He's willing to sacrifice some treasure, and I think he is, and our sense of bearing is off. I think what Orlin might do is try to locate what seems to be the most effective way of getting out of this place, and maybe using the discovery as the ability to kind of try to see the where the exit might be.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, add a dice for discovery. That makes sense. I think at this point, so I've seen this done either way. Basically, so you're trying to see it and make your way out. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not. I mean, given the scarcity of oxygen down here and the water rushing in, I don't know that I'm wanting to kind of negotiate very much with the.
You do have a ritual, by the way, if you want to.
Yeah, I have the gills that I could.
Yeah, it's another mixed bag there. Yeah, what I'm thinking is, so basically because the current swirling, there's these different creatures of the deep around her. To find your way to that's going to basically be risking your body and mind at this point because we're kind of at the pinnacle of it. So you can kind of see at a glance that you're at the top of the lighthouse and kind of where it opens up, there's an opening. But maybe to kind of make your way past is going to be basically a high risk kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that makes sense, you add unless there's any, I don't know if Devil's Bargains make sense or if you have any thoughts, Keith, about that.
No, I don't have anything for that one.
This is where, it's just like narrative and it's, throw it together.
Okay, so I'm going to roll a light one and a dark one. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the light one, which I'll make white. I rolled a 5 for the light color. And for the dark, I also rolled a 5.
Nice. So I think, that does mean, and I'm kind of pushing that on you guys at the very finale here, but that does mean your rune goes up. So you succeed but at finding the escape, but at the same time, the ocean claims you. You think about that for a second, and we'll come back to that. I want to see what Basso's doing. You you had something with that.
Yes, I want to do
Treasure.
a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
I have the ritual of rust. Erode an object with the ravages of time. And went
Cool.
to take this from her just as the ocean took Vero from me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to use a dark die. I don't know that I am particularly skilled in anything for this. So the dark die. And
You could, yeah.
I
guess,
mean,
yeah.
I can take more, right? If I, it's
Yeah,
just
you can
definitely
keep
going to
adding
increase.
if you want to. Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to increase my run. So I guess I'll just start with 2 of them.
That's just devil's bargains you want to throw out there.
I actually have my. Well, I was gonna say I have my own devil's bargain, which makes sense, especially because we're getting to the end.
Mm-hmm.
That succeed or fail, I won't make it out of here.
Okay.
But I also sort of like the idea of letting, if Ruin got to 6, doing that. This is also kind of like a weird design thing where it's like, I'm not rolling any white dice, so why would I ever stop taking dark dice knowing it's got to be the highest? I guess the idea is if I rolled a 4 or less on it, it wouldn't increase my run. But anyway, I'm going to do 2 and let's see what happens.
Okay.
And it's actually double 5s, so my ruin does go up.
Nice. But you succeed at the cost.
Which sounds like it's works out pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's redundant, but yeah, what does that look like when you cast a road, or what is it called, a road?
Rust.
Rust.
So I think I have like a hunk. It's probably not even identifiable as what it used to be before, but I remember it was part of an anchor of a ship that had shipwrecked. I couldn't save it from my lighthouse, and its anchor had washed up on the shore, and it's just a hunk of it, but it is so decayed from the rest of the years, and like I kind of worry at it while mumbling something under my breath, and a little bit of the rust particles come off, and I just send them out on the water current of what's floating or flooding the chamber now. And the queen beneath the waves kind of sees it coming, and it realizes what's happening and puts her hands around the vial, but they're so tiny they are able to slip between her fingers, and the glass just ages immediately. It starts to crack and splinter and almost revert back to sand, and her dried mushrooms get sodden, and you just see them in her hands as they become useless to her.
Losing all their
there's a
power.
complication.
So yes, the devil's bargain was that you're not going to make it out of here.
I didn't actually take the devil's bargain,
Oh,
so you can throw something at it for that. Yeah,
complication. I think to do that, I think you're somehow her court, all these denizens of the deep basically have surrounded you at that point while you're casting this. You succeed, you get your vengeance, you destroy this precious thing. And it does seem like a bit of her shimmer fades a little bit. Whatever sort of ancient magic or whatever power she has, maybe she held that dear to her. I think we'll come back to in a second, because you finish that and you find there's an eel just circling around your leg on one side, and the shark just bumps into you in the back and nudges you a little bit. And you feel this like a giant lobster crawling up you on the side, and they're could probably consume you at any moment, but they haven't yet. They're just very packed in and close around you. I want to come back to Orlin. It's kind of your moment for an epilogue. I have ideas, but I'm curious if you have any ideas of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I'm making my way what I, at least initially, I was hoping would be my way out. But I do glance back at what is happening to the Tide Queen as Basso is dealing with her with his rust spell. And I do catch a glimpse of that statuette that has now actually, it's small, but she's surrounded with this other treasure, and that statuette is definitely has found its way into that treasure. And I also distinctly think that that kind of black, kind of oily, substance is also starting to infect her a little bit, right? That I can see that black, oily substance not only kind of reappearing on that statuette, but also feel like I can see, along with the rust, that kind of black ooze starting to, on little specks, appear on her as well. And then I try to make my way up there, but even with my lung capacity, it's ultimately giving out. And
I think at the same moment as you see that ooze has kind of transferred to her, and you feel this certainty that whatever curse that was, or that cursed family relic you were trying to get rid of, you're no longer bound to it. You're free of it. It's now just a part of this bigger, deeper magic down here. But you feel your lungs fill with water, and you kind of start to fade a little bit, even as you're kind of drifting out of the top of that lighthouse. But then you feel yourself breathing water in again, and you have this weird sensation that you feel that hunger again. You smell the blood in the water. You kind of turn and you see the other shark circling around, and you feel as that sort of corruption, that powerful old magic of the ocean has kind of consumed your body. You feel movement. You feel you have gills now, and you have become much like that creature that you bound before. You feel like the sharp teeth in your mouth, and you up to you what that looks like. But you're now basically a predator of the ocean. You joined her court, so you've escaped for what good that did you. You're free of the curse, but now you're another denizen of the ocean. And Bazo, what's the last thing we see? You're now surrounded by these other creatures of her court. They're starting to pull at your flesh. And
so I think referencing what happened to Orlin there, becoming a creature of the court, I think as they are gathering over, I realized that what seemed to just be sea creatures do seem to be chimeric and have human features still. Like one of the lobsters, the other claw is a human hand, and like the eel has a human eye set in its face. Oh no, even worse, human teeth in the eel's face. And one of the creatures, let's go with squid, that looks like it's like toying with me and coming closer and closer to my face, and ready to adhere to it. Just before it does, I realize that it is Vero's face, and that he has been transformed to a member of the court. And for just a second, I think that means that he's going to save me. And then it turns out that's not the case. And that's my last thought, is the darkness of his tentacles encircles my face, and the last one wraps around my throat to squeeze out the final breath of air.
Wow.
I think Basso does not get accepted to the court after that little bit of insurrection to start with. He's just dead. He doesn't even get
Amazing. I mean, you still achieved what you set out to. That was the cost, I guess.
I mean, what I thought, like I thought I was avenging his death. He wasn't dead, but okay.
Awesome.
Maybe I avenged something. Maybe that's
Hmm.
the way
We're
to
gonna,
think of it.
yeah. Just do a last little image as the seasons turn. The next midwinter comes around, and another effigy starts to be formed on the shore. The villagers are putting together everything and making offerings. And some other travelers come up to participate in the ritual out of curiosity or maybe with other motives. But a couple things they notice woven among the different offerings and pieces put together, kind of tucked right inside, maybe inside the neck of the effigy, is a small coral figure that's just woven right in there. And I'm trying to remember last minute if there's other items from Basso that you had or not, but I'm forgetting. There could be pieces of that glass vial, perhaps, or there's mushrooms growing in there or something like that.
Yeah, that makes
Any other
sense.
details y'all want to add to that?
Let's see what is stuff. Maybe the little bit of the rusted anchor.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's added in there like one of the ribs or something. So more pieces of the ocean have maybe washed up and are now adding back into that cycle of being offered and consumed again. That's we'll close the game. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna
Cool.
end the broadcast here in a second, then we can kind of discuss afterwards. But thanks so much for playing, and if anyone has actually watched this to the end, definitely check out the Gauntlet for other games like this. Run your own, play with a lot of cool folks. It's gauntlet-rpg.com. And Trophy, the game, is actually coming to Kickstarter soon. This piece I wrote is actually in it, which is super cool, and a bunch of other really, really cool stuff. So well worth checking out and making your own incursions and running it if you've had any fun watching this. So check it out. All right, let me close it out.